Chapter 1990, The Truth. 1. Looking at the dense mass of heads gathered in front of the Yao family's building, Leng Ruoxue and the others were all speechless. They all thought in unison, how strong is the desire of this group of people to watch a show. Looking at these people's faces full of anticipation for a good show, most of them were here for the Yao family. However, it wasn't easy for them to watch a good show, because Uncle Long had simulated many ways to deal with it. Many people would definitely return without achieving anything. In Uncle Long's words, he was going to open a high-end and magnificent brothel. Not just any Tom, Dick, or Harry could enter. Therefore, the entrance fee alone was enough to make many people forget and stop. As a matter of fact, Cheng Wu had just announced that anyone who wanted to enter the Yao clan building to enjoy the treatment of the head of the family had to pay 10 top-grade crystals. Many people were dumbfounded, and some even directly questioned him. What's the charge for entering the Yao clan building? And it's so expensive. It is. 10 top-grade crystals. If I have 10 top-grade crystals, I can do anything. Why would I come to your place? After one person took the lead, many people began to discuss and express their dissatisfaction. In reality, many of them were just like what Leng Ruoxue and the rest had guessed. They were here to watch the show. They had never thought that they would have to pay to enter the house. As such, many of them would not be able to watch the show. Therefore, they naturally had a lot of opinions. It's our Yao clan building's rule to charge a fee, and the price is absolutely clear. If you can't bear to part with 10 top-grade crystals, you can naturally go do what you need to do. We won't beg you to come. When Cheng Wu heard what everyone said, his face turned cold and he said in an unpleasant tone. The moment he said that, everyone couldn't help but gasp. Did you see? This Yao clan was really arrogant. Some people had only slightly expressed their dissatisfaction, and the other party immediately expressed their attitude. Could it be that they really had the Yao family backing them up? Otherwise, how could he be so insolent? With this, those who had been suspicious and secretly suspecting that the Yao clan building had something to do with the Yao clan were even more certain. However, this confirmation also made many people successfully shut up. Seeing this, Cheng Wu smiled faintly. Everyone, I know that you all feel that our entrance fee is expensive. However, what I want to say is that our entrance fee is definitely worth the money. As long as you are willing to part with these 10 top-grade crystals, you will definitely not regret it. Cheng Wu's words were rather emotional. For a moment, everyone hesitated. In reality, although 10 pieces of top-grade crystals were not a small number, it was not that the people present could not afford it. However, if they were to take out 10 pieces of top-grade crystals just to watch the show, many people would feel a little aggrieved. Therefore, even after Cheng Wu had finished speaking for a long time, no one dared to be the first to take the initiative. After waiting for a long time, Cheng Wu was running out of patience. At this moment, a tall and brawny man walked out from the crowd. After taking the initiative to hand over 10 top-grade crystals, he swaggered into the Yao clan building as if no one else was around. After he left, another 10 or so people paid and followed him in. Seeing this, Cheng Wu's face gradually revealed a happy expression. Everyone, I forgot to tell you an important piece of news. Today is the first day of the Yao family's opening, and we will only receive 50 guests. There are only 35 spots left now. Everyone, you have to hurry up. Otherwise, you will definitely regret it. Cheng Wu reminded. This time, just as he finished his sentence, a curious person took the initiative to pay up. Seeing this, Cheng Wu patted the person's shoulder in joy and said, "You won't regret this." After that, several more people paid up and wanted to go in to see what was going on. After all, it was only about 10 top-grade crystals, so this was the only time they would be cheated. If the real thing was worth it, then they didn't come in vain. If this Yao clan building wasn't as good as it made it out to be, then they wouldn't come here again. With this in mind, people started to pay up one after another. Cheng Wu would occasionally remind everyone, only 10 spots left. Everyone, hold on tight. In the time that followed, the last 10 spots were finally gathered, and Chen Wu finally heaved a sigh of relief. In fact, when he heard that Uncle Long wanted to charge an entrance fee, Chen Wu had a very uneasy feeling in his heart. This was because he always felt that since the Yao clan had opened for business, there should be a discount or promotion. Unfortunately, not only did Uncle Long not take the ordinary route, but he also charged an entrance fee. This made him very confused. Fortunately, he had passed the first test safely, and he could finally put his heart at ease. The Grand Elder and the others, who were also hidden in the crowd, saw that the Yao clan had easily earned 500 top-grade crystals and were left speechless at the speed of their accumulation of wealth. This was really a huge profit. I haven't seen anything yet. 10 pieces of top-grade crystals were gone. The Great Elder and the others couldn't help but mutter. After watching enough of the commotion at the front door, Leng Ruoxue and the rest entered the Yao clan building from the back door. They went straight to the private room that Uncle Long had arranged for them on the second floor. As soon as he sat down, First Elder couldn't help but say, "I really didn't know that Uncle Long had such a business mind. I'm impressed." Ah. In fact, most of the 50 people who came in today were hired by Uncle Long. Leng Ruoxue's forehead was filled with black lines as she exposed him. However, as soon as she said this, before the First Elder and the others could react, Uncle Long's slightly displeased voice came from the door, "Little girl, how could you expose me?" Then, Uncle Long appeared in front of Leng Ruoxue and the others with a wronged expression. "It's really a fake." First Elder and the others were speechless. In that case, were they excited for nothing? Hee. It was the first day. He had to create his own momentum. In the future, when they knew how good the Yao family building was, the source of customers would naturally roll in. However, the popularity on the first day is very important, so it's inevitable to resort to fraud. When Uncle Long said this, his face didn't turn red, and his heart didn't beat fast. He didn't look like he had been wronged at all. "That's true. But Uncle Long, where did you find those?" "I don't know a single one of them, they've all been tricked." The Great Elder asked curiously. Hee. They're all beasts of the endless ocean, and they rarely transform into human form, so naturally, no one would recognize them. Uncle Long said with a smile. He was quite proud of his own idea. "Uncle Long, you're really making the best use of everything." Leng Ruoxue was speechless. The beasts in the endless ocean had been used by Uncle Long, so the beasts in the land of demons would not be able to escape. That's a must. "Little girl, I have something to tell you. In fact, the beasties of the endless ocean have also invested in my Yao clan, and the beasties of the land of demons have also fallen. They have all contributed a lot to the Yao clan, so they have a share in the Yao clan." Uncle Long said calmly. It was obvious that he wanted to act first and report later. Chapter 1991, The Truth, 2. When Leng Ruoxue heard this, she nodded her head. The Yao family's business was managed by Uncle Long, so no matter what decision or idea Uncle Long had, she would support him unconditionally. However, when the First Elder and the others heard Uncle Long's words, they were a little dissatisfied. "Uncle Long, why do you only think of those beasts? They don't want us to join them. You guys don't lack money." Uncle Long's words were so natural that the Great Elder and the others felt depressed. In fact, they were also short of money. "All right. Don't try to be poor in front of me, just wait for a good show." Uncle Long glanced at the First Elder and the others, who were feeling wronged, and continued. "Uncle Long, what's the arrangement for today?" Leng Ruoxue asked curiously after hearing Uncle Long's words. Ha. Today's main event is the final auction," Uncle Long said in a mysterious manner. "Auction? Auctioning the first night of the Yao family's Grand Elder and the others?" Hearing the word auction, Lu Feng was excited. His eyes were fixed on Uncle Long, clearly very interested in this. However, his words caused Leng Ruoxue and the others to break out in a cold sweat. Lu Feng was simply too powerful for him to have such thoughts. However, when they thought about Uncle Long's character of not playing by the rules, it was very possible that he would do such a thing. Who knew that Uncle Long would give him a hard slap on the head after hearing what Lu Feng said? Then, he said with a look of disdain, "Lu family's kid, how can your thoughts be so evil? Would I do such a thing?" Lu Feng's eyes were filled with tears as he looked at Uncle Long pitifully. He wanted to say yes, but he didn't have the guts to do so, so he could only act like a mistreated little wife. When everyone saw him like this, they couldn't help but laugh. Looking at this group of unsympathetic people, Flowing Maple felt even more depressed. At this moment, a melodious tune was played. Leng Ruoxue and the rest looked out of the window of the private room and into the hall on the first floor. They happened to see everything that was happening in the hall. The location of their private room was the best in the entire Yao clan's building, with a clear view of the surroundings. Thus, everything that happened in the hall could not be hidden from them. In the middle of the hall on the first floor, a tall stage slowly rose up. On the stage, Cheng Wu smiled as he looked around at the guests around him. Then, he slowly opened his mouth and said, "I am the chief steward of the Yao clan. Welcome to the Yao clan. I hope that you will feel at home here. Our Yao clan house is a place for dining, accommodation, auctions, and various other activities. Furthermore, it is a one-to-one service. Simply put, every guest who comes to the Yao clan house will have a dedicated service staff to provide you with special services. However, any of our services will be charged. Now, there is a list of charges in front of you. You'd better take a good look at it before you decide what service you want to offer. So, think carefully to avoid unnecessary disputes." Cheng Wu paused for a moment. The guests around the stage, after hearing what Cheng Wu said, picked up a booklet from the table in front of them and flipped through it. Many of them widened their eyes in shock. Fuck! Was this a black shop? Why were all the things so expensive? A casual cup of tea actually cost 5 top-grade crystals, and some of the snacks were even more outrageously expensive. Ugh! I don't think I can afford it. For a moment, many people were already breaking out in cold sweat. It seemed that the treatment of the family head was really not so easy to enjoy. Just the price alone was enough to make people forget and fear. Looking at everyone's expression, Cheng Wu laughed and continued, "Hee hee. Don't worry, everyone. Since you are the first 50 guests of our Yao clan house and today is the first day of our business, we will give you a 20% discount on all your expenses. Feel free to enjoy it. However, you only have 2 days. After 2 days, everything will be restored to its original price, so you must seize the opportunity." Hearing that there was a 20% discount, some of them felt a little better. After all, since they were already here, they had to experience it. If he didn't eat or do anything and just left, it would be embarrassing if others asked. With this thought in mind, someone began to order. However, while they were ordering, someone couldn't help but ask about the exclusive service. "Great manager, didn't you say that there would be people who would serve us? How come we didn't see it?" The person who spoke was filled with confusion and anticipation. "Hee hee. If you want to have a dedicated service, you'll have to pay extra. The price is at the back, take a look yourself. If you think it's appropriate, I'll arrange it for you," Cheng Wu said very patiently. When that person heard this, he flipped to the back of the list. Some of the more trustworthy people also started to flip to the back. However, in the next second, there was no other reaction other than the sound of continuous gasps. After a long while, the man couldn't help but wipe the cold sweat on his forehead before asking, "Even the cheapest personal service costs 1,000 top-grade crystals. Isn't this a little too expensive?" "Not expensive. We are service staff. They are either elders or the elites of the Yao family, and they are all at the God King level or above. Do you think these people are only worth 1,000 top-grade crystals? To tell you the truth, you won't be able to enjoy their service in the divine realm with such a price." The corner of Cheng Wu's mouth twitched into a slight smile as he said indifferently. The meaning of his words was nothing more than to say that their fees were very cheap. "Ah, The person who raised the question could not deny that what Cheng Wu said was the truth. However, he was still unwilling to give up and asked, "What can they do for us?" Although the Yao family building was hinted at having the nature of a brothel, they had been here for so long and had not realized that this place was not like those filthy places at all. Moreover, the other party had not made it clear, so he had to ask clearly. Ha ha ha. If you buy the right to use them while you're staying at the Yao clan building, they'll naturally belong to you. You can hit them, scold them, and do whatever you want, but the condition is that you can't leave the Yao clan building. Cheng Wu clearly said. I can really do whatever I want. That person still didn't believe him. Of course. However, I can't let them die. I'm still counting on them to make money. Cheng Wu reminded. Do you want a 20% discount now? That person continued to ask. All purchases within 2 days will be at a 20% discount. So, you must seize this opportunity. Cheng Wu said with a smile. As long as someone asked, it was fine. What he was afraid of was that no one would ask, and he would be depressed. Then arrange one for me. I'll take the one that costs 200. The man hesitated for a while before finally saying. All right. This sir is the first customer of our Yao clan building to request personal service after we have opened for business. For this, I represent the Yao clan building to express our sincere gratitude to you and will waive 2 days of your board and lodging. Within these 2 days, other than the personal service and the auction fees, all your expenses in the Yao clan building will be waived. Cheng Wu said generously. Needless to say, this person was arranged by Uncle Long in advance. He was the kind of person who asked for help. Chapter 1992, The Truth is Out, 3. When that person heard Cheng Wu's words, his face was filled with surprise. Then, he encouraged his companion, why don't you try professional service? I can't come here for nothing. After his companion heard his advice, he no longer hesitated and directly ordered a dedicated service. Although Cheng Wu did not give anyone free food and lodging, he gave them a discount, which made everyone very happy. At this moment, another person's curiosity was piqued. Great manager, didn't you say that the Yao family's great elder would personally serve you? Why isn't he on the list? Hee. The Yao family's first elder is a top talent, so he's naturally not on the list. However, if you're interested in the first elder, you can naturally buy his time, but the first elder's time is calculated by the hour, and every hour is 10,000 top-grade crystals. Cheng Wu laughed. Arg! The Yao family's first elder is so expensive. That person said in surprise. This was clearly out of his expectations. Of course. That was the Yao family's first elder, not some random nobody. His status was clear for all to see. Our net worth naturally has to keep up. Otherwise, wouldn't you be disgracing the Yao family's grand elder? Cheng Wu said it as a matter of course, but he couldn't help but snicker in his heart. He didn't believe that there weren't any members of the Yao family among the people who came in. However, if those Yao family members who sneaked and heard his words, they would definitely be furious. I've reserved the Yao family's first elder, let him serve me. Suddenly, a cold voice came from the corner of the hall. Then, the person who spoke took out tens of thousands of top-grade crystals and filled the entire table. The moment Cheng Wu saw them, his handsome face bloomed into a smile. His eyes became even brighter after he saw the top-grade crystals. After giving a look to the people in the dark, someone immediately went forward to count the jingshi. A total of 110,000 top-grade crystals. The person in charge reported expressionlessly after he finished counting. Yes, this sir can book the Yao family's first elder for 11 hours. Men! Go and bring the Yao family's first elder here. Cheng Wu immediately ordered. However, that person was clearly dissatisfied with Cheng Wu's words. He coldly questioned, why don't I have discounts when everyone else does? Fuck. After spending so much money, why would he care about that little discount? Cheng Wu couldn't help but curse in his heart. However, his expression remained the same and he calmly said, "The Yao family's first elder is a rare commodity, so there's no discount. I hope your excellency can forgive me." After hearing Chen Wu's words, although the man's expression was still ugly, he did not continue to persist. At this moment, the Yao clan's grand elder was also brought into the hall. When everyone looked at him, they couldn't help but widen their eyes. They thought to themselves, it really is the Yao family's first elder. Initially, they thought that this was just a gimmick by the Yao family to attract customers. But after seeing it with their own eyes, they knew that what they said was true. The Yao clan's first elder was indeed working part-time here. Instantly, everyone looked at the Yao clan's grand elder in a different light. Don't ask why everyone knows the Yao family's first elder. This was because the members of the Yao family were too famous in the divine realm. They were high profile and liked to be in the limelight. They were almost everywhere. Therefore, it was difficult for the people present not to know him. As for the Yao family's first elder, he had just been brought up and was still in a daze. After seeing the people present, his expression was one of grief and indignation. He hated Chen Wu and the others to the core. They wished they could suck its blood, eat its flesh, and gnaw its bones. Unfortunately, now that his cultivation was sealed and he had been fed some mute medicine, he couldn't do anything he wanted. Therefore, the depression and anger in his heart had reached the peak, and he was about to explode. However, Chen Wu did not care about what the Yao clan's first elder thought. He was still smiling. Just as Chen Wu was about to send the Yao clan's great elder to the table of the person who had booked him, he was stopped halfway. "Wait. I'll pay 15,000 per hour for the Yao family's first elder." The person who spoke was a woman, an extremely beautiful woman with a rather sexy figure. When she spoke, all the men present could not help but look at the Yao family's first elder. They were all envious of his beautiful encounter. However, the way this woman looked at the Yao family's first elder didn't seem to be interested in him. When Chen Wu heard this, he was in a difficult position. He looked at the man who had booked the room first, then at the woman who had made a bold bid. He pretended to frown and did not say anything for a long time. "Great manager, I saw him first, you can't give him to me." That person noticed that Chen Wu seemed to be hesitating and could not help but remind him. However, when Chen Wu heard this, he made a decision without hesitation. There's only one great elder in the Yao family, and I can't split him in half to give to you. So, I've decided to bid to determine who he belongs to. The one who bids the highest will get it," Chen Wu said loudly. The moment he finished speaking, many people couldn't help but think in their hearts, "Profiteering merchant." He was truly a profiteer. When the woman heard Wan Wu's words, she shrugged her shoulders indifferently, indicating that she agreed. The man's expression was a little ugly because this meant that he might have to spend more money. "I bid 20,000. The woman took the lead. 25,000. The man gritted his teeth, and his expression gradually changed. 30,000. The woman rolled her eyes at the man who made the bid and continued to speak calmly. 35,000. The veins on the man's forehead were already throbbing. 40,000. The woman's expression remained unchanged. 45,000. The man's voice was so cold that it could freeze people to death. 50,000. The woman's expression was very relaxed. Then, she looked at the man provocatively, as if to say, "You can continue bidding. I'll accompany you to the end." At this price, the man's bidding was no longer so straightforward. When Chen Wu saw this, he imitated the auctioneer and shouted, 50,000 going once. 50,000 twice. After 2 bids, Chen Wu even purposely paused for a moment for the man. When he saw that the man seemed to have given up, he immediately shouted, 50,000 thrice. Deal. Chen Wu was extremely happy. He didn't think that the Yao clan's first elder would have such a market. He actually managed to bid for such a high price. Immediately, his gaze towards the Yao clan's first elder became heated. This was really a money tree. However, among the elders of the Yao family, he was probably the only one who could sell it at a high price of 50,000 per hour. What a pity! As Cheng Wu lamented, he pushed the Yao clan's first elder to the woman. At this moment, the Yao clan's first elder's face was already ashen. However, Cheng Wu did not forget to remind him, 50,000 top-grade crystals per hour. How many hours does young lady plan to book the Yao family's first elder? I'll keep him for 2 days. If he performs well, I'll continue to keep him. The woman said delightedly. Then, she handed a storage ring to Cheng Wu. Cheng Wu took it and glanced at it casually before keeping it in satisfaction. Then, he handed the woman a small medicine bottle and whispered, the Yao family's first elder's aura was too overbearing. We were afraid that he would scare the guests, so we gave him some medicine. This is the antidote. It's up to you to decide whether to give it to him or not. In fact, he had only given her the antidote for the anti-mute drug. Thanks. The woman nodded in satisfaction. In fact, she had already noticed that there was something wrong with the first elder of the Yao family, but she had no intention of pointing it out. Arrange the best private room for me. The woman continued. No problem, he said. Cheng Wu waved his hand and a waiter came over. Then, the waiter brought the Yao family's first elder and the woman to the second floor. Cheng Wu revealed a satisfied smile as he watched the two of them disappear. At the same time, Leng Ruoxue and the others who were sitting in the private room all looked at Uncle Long in unison after witnessing the scene. Uncle Long felt a little guilty from their gazes and quickly explained, I didn't arrange for that woman to be there. Who's that woman? Flowing Maple asked curiously. I don't know. Uncle Long was very honest and would not lie. I feel that the woman's aura is very strange. Do you have the same feeling? Lu Yue could not help but ask. That woman is not human. Uncle Long said in a low voice. Could it be a beast? The first elder and the others widened their eyes and said in disbelief, The Yao clan's grand elder was dancing with the beasts. It was so scary. Uncle Long didn't comment. Then, he asked with a mysterious look, why aren't you curious about the identity of the man who bid against the woman just now? Do I need to be curious? Leng Ruoxue chuckled. She knew who that person was. It's that old thing from the Yao family. The master of the Ning family said with certainty. No way. How could he just watch as his great elder was taken away by another woman? Just to save some money. Flowing Maple was shocked. This person was not just any ordinary person. That old thing has always liked to be calculative, so he naturally doesn't want to waste money for nothing. However, I guess he should have a countermeasure, otherwise, he wouldn't have left the Yao family's first elder alone. The master of the Ning family, who knew him well, said. Is he looking for an opportunity to save her? Flowing Maple guessed. Ha ha ha. Your Excellency Flowing Maple, you found out the truth. However, if I were him, I would create some chaos and then rescue the Yao family. Leng Ruoxue laughed. Wishes are beautiful. However, the reality was cruel. I won't give him that chance. If he wants to take away the Yao family, he can only redeem them with money. I'll teach him a good lesson for causing trouble in the Yao clan tower. Uncle Long said coldly. Chapter 1993, Old Friend, 1, Uncle Long, I support you. Hearing Uncle Long's words, Lu Feng hurriedly said. Yes, just wait for a good show. Uncle Long said with an evil smile. At this time, most of the guests in the hall on the first floor had chosen the standard of service they had requested. Most of them chose to eat in the hall out of curiosity, and only a few people asked for a private room out of consideration of their status. The guest who had intended to book the Yao family's first elder chose a private room after he lost the bid. After that, there was no reaction. However, at this time, he was sitting in the private room, pounding his chest and stomping his feet in regret. The man was sitting in the private room with a gloomy face. Behind him were two cautious attendants. From the expressions on the attendants' faces, they were very nervous and didn't even dare to breathe. Suddenly, pa! The man slammed the table hard and stood up with a whoosh. The two attendants behind him were so frightened that they took a step back. Ancestor! The two attendants called out softly. You guys split up and investigate the terrain here. Prepare to save people tonight. The man, the head of the Yao family, didn't speak for a long time before he slowly opened his mouth. Yes. The two attendants quickly responded. In fact, they were not real attendants, but two elders of the Yao family. Then, the two of them turned around and left the room. The head of the Yao family sat back down with a gloomy face. Humph. Uncle Long. Uncle Long. What should I do with you? The head of the Yao family thought to himself. In fact, when he found out that the Yao family building was opened by Uncle Long, he had lost control of his anger for a while. In his eyes, Uncle Long was too difficult to deal with. Even if he had provoked the head of the Ning family, he didn't want to make things difficult for Uncle Long. Unfortunately, Uncle Long had come to provoke the Yao family, and this fact made him quite depressed. He really didn't know what he had done to offend Uncle Long for him to go against the Yao family. Uncle Long was definitely a guy who gave him a headache. He also couldn't accept the conditions that Uncle Long asked for. The Yao family had already lost a large sum of money in the mystery realm. If they were to take out this sum of money again, the wealth that the Yao family had accumulated for many years would be gone. At that time, the Yao family would definitely become an empty shell. As the head of the Yao family, how could he allow such a thing to happen to the Yao family? Therefore, the conditions for the ransom made him stop. However, he had to save her. Thus, he had to come personally, hoping that he could save her. However, he couldn't use overly forceful methods to deal with Uncle Long. More importantly, he wasn't confident that he could defeat Uncle Long. With Leng Ruoxue and the others' relationship with Uncle Long, if the two sides were to fight, they would definitely be the ones at a disadvantage. Hence, he decided to use his wits. As for how to use his wisdom and whether he could succeed, it would depend on that person's performance. Before he came, he had already sent someone to investigate Uncle Long's current situation. He knew that he was staying with Leng Ruoxue and the others. Hence, after thinking for a long time, he had asked that person to help him. Because of this, he had even been ruthlessly ripped off once. Now that he thought about it, his heart ached a little. However, what he gave to that person was much less than what Uncle Long had asked for. Thinking about it this way, he felt more at ease. At this time, Uncle Long and the others didn't know that the head of the Yao family had already thought of a way to deal with them. However, even if they knew, they wouldn't care, because they were currently eating heartily in the private room. To these foodies, nothing was more important than food. Uncle Long, your chef's skills are pretty good. Lu Feng looked at the table full of dishes, his mouth full of oil, and did not forget to praise. Ha ha ha. Of course, Uncle Long said proudly. The chef he had hired was no ordinary person. Naturally, his craftsmanship was extraordinary. The guests are in for a treat. If I'm not wrong, these dishes were made by the divine chef Lu Qi, right? The master of the Ning family said with certainty after carefully savoring it. Lu Qi. Leng Ruoxue's face was filled with question marks. She was very unfamiliar with this name. Hee hee. The Ning family's boy has good taste. Yes, he did it. Uncle Long laughed smugly. Uncle Long, you're amazing. He managed to invite Lu Qi in such a short time. From what I know, he has already retired and no longer cooks. Why again? The great elder said with a puzzled expression. Who would dare to not give me face when Uncle Long takes action? Uncle Long said confidently. Then, he turned to Leng Ruoxue and said, Little girl, Lu Qi is a famous divine chef in the divinity. His biggest hobby is cooking. Cultivation is secondary to him. However, although his cooking skills are good, he is a little unreasonable and has offended many major forces. The reason why he stopped cooking is that the veins in his hand were cut by his enemies. You should know how important his hand is to a person who likes to cook. Without his hand, he can't even hold the knife steadily, so naturally, he can't cook. Because of this, he was depressed for a long time. After I found him, I promised to cure his hand, so I kidnapped him. Ah. So it's like this. When Len Ruoshua heard this, she couldn't help but wipe away the cold sweat on her forehead. She was surprised to find that Uncle Long had also learned how to abduct people. This momentum was good, and he had to continue to maintain it. Uncle Long, can you cure his hand? At this time, Lu Feng asked the question that had been on his mind. When did Uncle Long learn how to treat injuries? Why hadn't he heard of it? When Uncle Long heard this, he looked at Lu Feng with disdain and said, You idiot, even though I don't know how to treat injuries, but with little Shuai'er's healing pills, what injuries can't be cured? I only gave him a pill, and when his hand recovered, he naturally followed me here. Oh right, I also promised to guarantee his safety. I see. Upon hearing this, Shen Nua said with a sudden realization. She was very clear about Lu Qi's injuries because Lu Qi had looked for many alchemists, including her. Unfortunately, the healing medicinal pill that could cure Lu Qi's injuries had to be the best of the best, and the medicinal ingredients to refine the best of the best were very difficult to gather. Therefore, they were also helpless in this matter. At the thought of this, Shen Nua's gaze could not help but turn towards Len Ruoshua. He knew that this little girl could casually take out medicinal ingredients that were extremely precious to them. So, it was not something new for Len Ruoshua to have the highest grade healing medicinal pill in her hands. As for the heartless Lu Feng, after hearing Uncle Long's words, he said happily, Hee hee. You're going to have a good time in the future. You know, it's so hard to eat Lu Qi's personally made dishes in the past, but it's great this time. If you want to eat, come to the Yao family building. Are you dreaming? Lu Qi is the head chef of our Yao family restaurant. He won't cook for you all day long. Uncle Long said in disdain. Ah. Then what time does he do it? Lu Feng asked curiously. Depends on his mood. Uncle Long said calmly. Even though all the dishes today were made by Lu Qi, in order to keep the customers appetizing, Lu Qi would not cook every day. After all, the rarer something was, the more expensive it would be. If a divine chef made too many dishes, no matter how delicious the dishes were, they would become worthless. As for today, as it was the first day of business, he naturally had to keep the customers appetizing. This way, they would feel that this trip was not in vain. At the same time, it also helped to promote the Yao family. Chapter 1994, An Old Friend, 2, and just as Uncle Long had expected, the guests who entered the Yao clan building were immediately amazed when they tasted the Yao clan building's dishes for the first time. None of them had expected the cooking skills of the Yao clan building's chef to be so outstanding. This immediately made many people feel that the entrance fee they paid was well worth it. There was a reason why this dish was expensive. Therefore, for a moment, the hall on the first floor became quiet. Many people were only focused on eating and did not care about anything else. Some people were not satisfied. After tasting a few dishes, they began to order again. In the end, when they were really full, they put down their chopsticks reluctantly. After eating and drinking to their fill, someone curiously asked the head chef of the Yao family restaurant. When they heard Cheng Wu say that all the dishes of the Yao family restaurant today were made by Master Chef Lu Qi, most of them were shocked. This was too unbelievable. They actually ate the dishes made by the Master Chef Lu Qi at the Yao family restaurant. No wonder those dishes were so expensive. However, it was indeed worth it. Instantly, everyone's gazes towards Cheng Wu changed, and the way they looked at the Yao clan also changed. Before coming here, many people had already determined that the Yao clan building was a brothel and seemed to be related to the Yao family. Therefore, most of them came here with the mentality of watching a show. However, they did not expect that the small Yao clan building would actually give them such a big surprise. This was beyond their expectations. With this thought in mind, they began to look forward to the Yao clan's other activities. Those who didn't book a private room at first booked one after a meal. They were prepared to stay here for 2 days because Cheng Wu told them that Chef God Lu Qi would only cook 3 meals 2 days before the opening. As for when he would cook in the future, it would depend on the luck of the Yao family's customers. When they heard this, everyone decided to stay here for 2 days without any hesitation. In reality, many cultivators in the immortal realm loved good food. This was not because they would be hungry, but purely for enjoyment. Most of the gods found it hard to resist the temptation of good food, unless they had never tasted good food before. Otherwise, as long as they had eaten the most delicious food, they would not be able to resist the temptation. As a result, after tasting the Yao clan's dishes, the Yao clan's position in their hearts had risen to an unprecedented level. Even if many people still thought that the Yao clan was a brothel that could not be shown in public, it would not affect the position of the Yao clan in their hearts. The first meal that the Yao clan had taken out had hooked the stomachs of most people, and the auction that the Yao clan had arranged for the evening had completely hooked their hearts. After dinner, everyone wondered what the Yao clan would do. They had only eaten 3 meals during the day, but there was no activity. In their hearts, the Yao clan was definitely not that simple. As expected, half an hour after dinner, Cheng Wu announced the start of the auction. Hearing the word auction, everyone's ears perked up. Even though they did not think that the Yao clan would have anything good to auction, out of curiosity, they still invested a great deal of interest in the Yao clan's auction. However, after hearing Cheng Wu's introduction of tonight's auction items, everyone was shocked. Fuck! Just what was the background of this Yao clan? How could there be so many good things? There were a total of 10 items up for auction tonight, and the worst of them was actually a refined divine artifact. Among the 10 items, there were supreme-grade medicinal pills, precious medicinal herbs, and rare blacksmithing materials that made people's eyes burn with envy. One should know that even in the immortal realm, these things were things that could not be bought even with money. However, they had seen them in the newly opened Yao family building. How could they not go crazy? At this moment, they were even more convinced that the Yao clan tower's background was not simple. Hee hee. There's no need to get excited, my distinguished guests. The auction is about to begin. The one with the highest price will get it, so don't miss this opportunity. Cheng Wu said emotionally. The reason why he announced the 10 items to the public was to get a good price. Hurry up and start. Someone couldn't wait and shouted. Hee hee. The auction will now officially begin. Cheng Wu glanced at the restless crowd and announced calmly. The first item up for auction is a divine artifact that can grow. The starting price was 100,000 top-grade crystals. Each bid increased by 1,000. Now, everyone can start bidding, Cheng Wu slowly announced. Whoosh. The moment Cheng Wu said that, many gasps entered his ears. Everyone had thought that it was just an ordinary divine artifact. They did not expect it to be something that could grow into a weapon. As such, the value of this divine artifact instantly rose to a new level in their hearts, and it was now of equal value to the other 9 items. When Cheng Wu saw their reaction, he was secretly pleased with himself. One had to know that the 10 items today had been carefully selected by them. Although the types of items were different, their values were extremely different. Therefore, how could they auction off an ordinary divine weapon? That would lower the level of the entire auction. However, he was also well aware that among the guests today, there were not many who had the ability to bid for these items. However, he did not mind, because it did not matter to him whether these items would be auctioned or not. His goal was to make the Yao clan tower famous. And after tonight, the Yao clan tower would truly be able to shake the entire divine realm. He didn't even need to use the Yao family's name. Just these 10 items were enough to make the people of the divine realm go crazy. Not long after Cheng Wu's starting bid was called out, the crowd was so shocked that they even forgot to bid. After a long time, someone finally reacted and quickly bid. 101,000. Someone took the lead and shouted. 105,000. Someone directly increased the price by another 4,000. 150,000. 200,000. The auction site exploded. Those who were interested in this god equipment that could grow did not want to let it go. It was a god equipment with defensive attributes. Although the divine weapon was in the shape of a wrist guard and looked extremely unremarkable, its attributes were extremely domineering. Other than its normal defense, it could also withstand 3 attacks from a powerhouse who was 3 ranks higher than itself. In other words, if the wearer was a person with the strength of a divine king, then after wearing the wrist guard, he could withstand 3 attacks from a reverent god. What kind of concept was this? This was definitely the best life-saving weapon. No one could resist such an abnormal attribute. For a god, this was simply a life-saving charm in a critical moment. Whether it was for themselves or for someone important to them, they would be absolutely safe. In the end, this god tool that could grow was sold for a high price of 2 million top-grade crystals. Chapter 1995, An Old Friend, 3, The winner was a very unremarkable old man. When it came to paying, this old man was very proactive, and his face was full of pride. After winning this wrist guard, he could no longer bid for any other items. However, to him, other than this wrist guard, he was most interested in the supreme grade healing elixir. Unfortunately, he was short of money and could only buy one of the 2 items at most. Therefore, he could only drool at the sight of the supreme grade elixir. As if he could see the old man's regret, Cheng Wu immediately added after the first item was sold, "Hee hee. Don't be disappointed if you didn't get the item that can grow into a divine weapon. There are still 9 more good items. Moreover, we will also hold auctions regularly and irregularly. I'm afraid that you'll be dazzled by the selection." The last sentence was said jokingly by Cheng Wu. When the crowd heard his words, someone immediately asked, "When is the next auction?" This time, he didn't bring enough money, so he could only drool at the sight of these good things. When he returned, he would definitely report this matter to the clan. At that time, the clan would definitely pay attention to it. To be determined. We don't have a fixed time for our auction, so it's up to your luck when we'll hold another auction. Cheng Wu said with a smile. As soon as his words came out, almost everyone thought in their hearts, unscrupulous merchant. He was definitely a profiteer. Because of this, if they wanted to participate in the auction in time, they would have to come here often. Otherwise, they would not have a share of the good things. However, Cheng Wu didn't care about their thoughts. The purpose of this auction was to make the Yao clan tower famous. As the auction continued, the atmosphere became more and more heated. The head of the Yao family, who was sitting in the private room, felt his heart ache as he watched the items being auctioned off one by one. Unfortunately, he didn't bring much money with him and he didn't want the Yao family to earn his own money. Therefore, he was in a dilemma from the moment the auction started. Meanwhile, in the private room where Leng Ruoxue and the others were, everyone was looking at Uncle Long with adoration, which made Uncle Long feel a little embarrassed. "Uncle Long, you're such a business-minded old man." Lu Feng looked at Uncle Long, his eyes sparkling. "Hee hee. This is the result of everyone's collective wisdom, how could I have thought of so much?" Uncle Long said humbly. "Uncle Long, you took out the elixir I gave you to auction?" Leng Ruoxue asked speechlessly. Out of the 10 items that were being auctioned off, at least 5 of them belonged to her. Furthermore, they had been sold off by Uncle Long without her knowledge. "Ah. I'm also trying to increase the reputation of our Yao family building," Uncle Long said awkwardly. "What's with those herbs?" Leng Ruoxue continued to ask. It seemed like there was a traitor by her side. "I asked for it from Qing Ju," Uncle Long said. After he finished speaking, he lowered his head timidly. He was a little nervous. Sob. Shuai wouldn't be angry, would she? Qing Ju had said that he still had a lot of those medicinal herbs. That was why he had taken them out to sell. I see. Leng Ruoxue was helpless. The traitor was Qing Ju. Sister, there are too many of those herbs. It doesn't matter if you sell some. At this moment, Qing Ju's voice sounded in Leng Ruoxiu's heart. He was afraid that she would be angry. He. I'm not angry. Leng Ruoxiu replied with a smile as she sensed Qing Ju's thoughts. Hearing this, Qing Ju was relieved. In reality, he also knew that his sister would not be angry over such a small matter. That was why he took the initiative to give the medicinal herbs to Uncle Long. The reason why the two of them did not inform Leng Ruoxiu in advance was because they wanted to maintain a sense of mystery and give everyone a surprise. Little girl, are you angry? At this moment, Uncle Long, who noticed Leng Ruoxiu's calm reaction, couldn't help but ask cautiously. No, I didn't. Leng Ruoxiu looked at the uneasy Uncle Long and laughed. This was the first time she had seen Uncle Long reveal such an expression. It was quite rare. He. It's good that you're not angry. Uncle Long heaved a sigh of relief. He was finally relieved. Uncle Long, can I bid for these items? Suddenly, Shen Nua could not help but ask. He was very interested in the medicinal ingredients that were being auctioned. Why are you taking pictures? I'm using that as bait. Uncle Long asked in surprise. He clearly couldn't understand why an alchemist's reaction to medicinal ingredients was a conditioned reflex. You don't need to bid, I still have a lot of those two herbs. Leng Ruoxiu said to Shen Nua in a light tone. Ah. All right. Shen Nua felt inferior. He knew that Leng Ruoxiu had quite a few good medicinal herbs in her hands. Sob. He was so envious, jealous, and hateful. Schwaer. I also want one. Seeing this, Flowing Maple also spoke up. What do you want? Leng Ruoxiu played dumb. I need forging materials. Lu Feng said directly, not at all polite. No, I didn't. Leng Ruoxiu rejected him without even thinking. Why? You didn't even blink when you gave it to him, but when I asked you for it, you said you didn't have it. Lu Feng was a little angry. Wasn't this clearly a blatant difference in treatment? How was he any worse than Shen Nua? He had known Leng Ruoxiu much earlier than Shen Nua, and he was also good friends with Mo Yen, the master of this girl's ancestor. However, this girl always bullied him. What was this for? He could not understand. In reality, Leng Ruoxiu did like to bully him, especially when he was stomping his feet in anger. So, in order to satisfy her sadistic taste, Lu Feng naturally suffered a tragedy. Yes, if I say I don't have my things, then I naturally don't. Leng Ruoxiu replied indifferently, but she was laughing in her heart. Lu Feng's angry little face was so cute that he looked like a little bottom instead. That was why she would spare no effort to bully him whenever she had the chance. As expected, Lu Feng was so infuriated by Leng Ruoxiu's words that he blew his beard and glared at her. The crowd in the private room had already gotten used to this. Who asked them to know that Leng Ruoxiu liked to bully Lu Feng? More importantly, Flowing Maple would always take the initiative to be bullied by others, and they were all helpless about it. However, it was not as if Lu Feng did not have any benefits after being bullied. At least, every time he was bullied, Leng Ruoxiu would give him something good to compensate him. Thus, Lu Feng had always been forgetful. Or perhaps, this was the special way they got along with each other. What about me? Leng Ruoxiu teased the angry Lu Feng. I'm going to ignore you. After glaring at Leng Ruoxiu and holding it in for a long time, Lu Feng finally managed to say these words. With an arrogant and pampered expression, he said angrily. After he finished speaking, he really turned his head away and no longer bothered with Leng Ruoxiu. However, Leng Ruoxiu did not mind at all. Because no one would be easier to coax than Lu Feng. At this moment, a waiter walked into their private room. He lowered his head and whispered a few words to Uncle Long before he immediately turned and left. After the waiter left, Uncle Long looked at Leng Ruoxiu and said, "An old friend came to see me, I'm going to meet him." What? Leng Ruoxiu was a little surprised. Old friend? Was it from the endless sea? Why don't you guys come with me to meet him? Seeing the curiosity of Len Ruoxue and the others, Uncle Long thought for a moment and said, "All right." Len Ruoxue and the rest nodded and followed Uncle Long out of the private room. After leaving the Yao family building, Uncle Long brought Len Ruoxue and the others to the location the waiter had informed them of. Just as they reached the meeting place, a black figure immediately attacked Uncle Long. The figure was as fast as lightning and as swift as a dragon. A cold glint appeared on his body, and his speed was so fast that it was hard to catch. Seeing this, Uncle Long naturally didn't want to be outdone. In an instant, the two of them were entangled. Ugh! They fought just like that. Everyone was dumbfounded. Was this person Uncle Long's friend or enemy? How could he be so ruthless? He didn't show any mercy at all. However, Uncle Long didn't show any mercy either. The two of them were definitely fighting with real swords and spears. After a long time. In the end, Uncle Long won the battle. However, it wasn't easy for Uncle Long either. After the fight, the panting Uncle Long glared at the man and said, "We haven't seen each other for so many years. Why are you still so violent?" "Ha ha ha. I just wanted to test if your strength had regressed. After all, you've been cooped up in the endless ocean for so many years, that damn place where birds don't lay eggs. It's normal for your strength to be wasted." That person mocked without holding back. At this moment, Len Ruoxue and the rest finally had the chance to carefully observe the person who spoke. The speaker was a young man who seemed to be in his early 20s. However, his dark gray eyes seemed to have seen the vicissitudes of life, filled with the traces of time. His body was filled with a chilling aura, which made people feel a little creeped out. Just as Len Ruoxue and the rest were sizing up that person, he was also sizing them up. However, his face remained expressionless, and no one could guess what he was thinking. After a long while, "Are these little guys the reason you're staying in the demonic land?" the man asked. "It's none of your business," Uncle Long said unhappily. Len Ruoxue and the others, who rarely heard Uncle Long say vulgarities, widened their eyes in disbelief when they heard what Uncle Long said. Their faces were filled with shock. "Ha ha ha. It's none of my damn business. However, I've come all the way here to see you, so you have to treat me well." Hearing Uncle Long's words, the man laughed instead of getting angry. Chapter 1996, Inferno, 1, Entertain You? Uncle Long was confused when he heard this. Then, he said, "Why should I treat you well? You're nobody to me, and I didn't invite you here. However, if you want to have good food and drink here, it's not impossible. As long as you pay, I'll guarantee that you'll be satisfied." "Why are you still so stingy?" the man said helplessly after hearing what Uncle Long said. "What do you know? I'm living a good life. Do you think I don't need to spend money to entertain you? I have a lot of people to feed, so you can rest and eat for free," Uncle Long said, as if there was no room for discussion. When Len Ruoxue and the rest heard the conversation between the two of them, the cold sweat on their foreheads could not help but drip down. They were all thinking in their hearts, "Are these two really old friends?" They really couldn't tell from Uncle Long's disdainful look. "AI. Forget it, I already know what kind of person you are, and I've already prepared the money for you. However, you have to serve me well, or else I'll ask for compensation." The man sighed, and the helplessness on his face deepened. However, when Len Ruoxue and the rest heard his words, they had no choice but to think in the wrong direction. Did the service feel comfortable? Why did these words sound so ambiguous? However, they only dared to keep this thought to themselves and didn't have the guts to say it out loud. Otherwise, Uncle Long would definitely fly into a rage. When Uncle Long heard that, he didn't even frown. Instead, he said calmly, "I'm sure you'll be satisfied. However, give me the money first." After he finished speaking, he even extended his hand impolitely. "When did you become so money-grubbing?" The man's mouth twitched involuntarily when he saw Uncle Long's anxious expression, but he still obediently took out an item ring and handed it to Uncle Long, muttering, "I just earned some money a few days ago, and now it's all in your pocket." "Then who can you blame?" Uncle Long said with a gloating expression, as if he was saying, "I didn't invite you here. It's my fault." "That's enough." The man was a little angry. This damn whale was still acting innocent after getting a bargain. The older he got, the less adorable he became. "It's good that you know." Uncle Long continued to provoke him. However, seeing that the person's expression was getting uglier and uglier, Uncle Long knew to stop while he was ahead to avoid angering the person. Before the person could get angry, he smiled at Len Ruoxue and the others. "This person's surname is Ao, you guys can just call him Old Man Ao." "Ah. Uncle Long, he's your friend?" Len Ruoxue couldn't help but ask curiously when she saw the way the two of them interacted. "No. It's an enemy," the two of them said in unison. Upon hearing this, more cold sweat appeared on everyone's foreheads. However, what made Len Ruoxue and the rest even more conflicted was that Old Man Ao did not look like someone to be trifled with. Could they really call him Old Man Ao? More importantly, the man looked like he was in his early 20s, so it was weird to call him an old man. At the thought of this, no one dared to say anything for a long time. Seeing them like this, the man laughed and said, "You guys can just call me Old Man Ao. A name is just a code name, I've never cared." "Ah. Senior Old Man Ao, welcome." Len Ruoxue thought for a moment before speaking. Hee. "This little girl is quite interesting, but don't call me senior or anything, it'll make me old." Old Man Ao smiled as he corrected. When Len Ruoxue heard this, she was a little depressed. She thought to herself, "Don't tell me calling you Old Man Ao doesn't mean that I'm calling you old. Adding the word, senior, makes you sound old. What kind of logic was this?" As expected, the strong were all unreasonable. Looking at Len Ruoxue's conflicted expression, Uncle Long was unhappy. He glared at Old Man Ao, "Why are you bullying my little girl? So what if I call you senior? You don't know how much older you are than her, so it's not like you'll lose a piece of flesh if I call you senior. You're still so protective of your child, all right. It's my fault, okay?" Old Man Ao quickly admitted his mistake. In fact, his real name was Ao Jie. However, those who were not familiar with him would not dare to call him by his name. Those who were familiar with him, such as this old whale, would always call him Old Man Ao or Old Thing. Therefore, it could be said that he was already used to it. If he were to hear this old whale call him by his name one day, he would not be used to it. Seeing that Ao Jie had admitted his mistake with a good attitude, Uncle Long was very satisfied. Then, he said to him, "You came at the right time. My Yao family restaurant is open for business today. Let's go, it'll take you to enjoy it." Uncle Long said enthusiastically. Of course, the other party had paid for it. However, when he heard the word brother, Ao Jie was furious. "Who are you? Don't randomly claim relatives. Your brother, of course. I'm older than you, so it's not a loss for you to call me brother. Good girl. Be obedient." This time, Uncle Long coaxed him as if he were coaxing a child. "Big my ass. You're only a few days older than me." Ao Jie was furious and the consequences were severe. However, Uncle Dragon felt quite comfortable when he saw Ao Jie getting angry. He did it on purpose, so what? Then, Uncle Long hugged Ao Jie and said, "Let's go, follow brother to the Yao clan building." After he finished speaking, he did not give Ao Jie a chance to reject and directly half-dragged Ao Jie away. When Len Ruoxue and the rest saw this scene, they were deeply impressed by Uncle Long's power. Uncle Long was indeed a strong man. At this moment, the auction was still in full swing. When Ao Jie followed Uncle Long in and saw the fiery scene, he was speechless. This group of people was too passionate, right? However, when he glanced at the auction items, he suddenly understood. It turned out that at this moment, the item being auctioned was a rare and priceless medicinal herb. Coincidentally, this medicinal herb was one of the main ingredients to refine a supreme-grade healing medicinal pill. Therefore, the guests had gone crazy, and the price of this medicinal herb had already reached an astronomical price. In the end, this medicinal herb was sold for 5 million top-grade crystals. In fact, the price had long exceeded the value of the medicinal herb itself. However, there was no place to buy a medicinal herb like Naiha even if you had the money. Therefore, the price was inflated. Many people had even sent a message to their families, and the reply given by their families was to do their best to get the medicinal herb. Therefore, the price of the medicinal herb was ridiculously high. Even so, those who did not manage to get the medicinal herb were still regretful. However, the auction that followed was even more heated. Ao Jia followed Uncle Long and the others to the private room. They tasted the food and enjoyed the lively scene of the auction. In the end, he did not know what to say. How should he put it? In any case, they were filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. There were all kinds of sour and bitter feelings. Because he never dreamed that the old man who had been living in seclusion all this time would be doing better than him. The old man had probably made a lot of money from the auction alone, and with the delicious food here, it would be strange if he didn't make a fortune. Chapter 1997, Inferno, 2, however, he only thought about it for a moment. In fact, he was still very happy to see that this old thing was no longer living in seclusion. Otherwise, according to this old man's previous personality, it would not be easy to see him. After an unknown amount of time, the auction finally ended with everyone's reluctance. After hearing Cheng Wu's report on the auction's results, Uncle Long's face was almost full of smiles. He didn't expect this. He didn't expect that. The 10 items prepared for the auction were all auctioned off, and almost all of them were sold at sky-high prices. This fact made Uncle Long very surprised. At first, Uncle Long thought that it would be a great success if they could get 5 pieces. After all, the purpose of this first auction was to make the Yao Clan Tower famous. Therefore, they had launched a surprise attack and had not announced it to the public. However, he did not expect the result to be so gratifying. In fact, the reason why all 10 items were successfully auctioned off had a lot to do with many people contacting their families later on. This was also mainly because Cheng Wu had promised them that they would only need to pay off the auction funds before they left the store. Therefore, he had given them time. This was why the number of people participating in the auction had increased. However, Cheng Wu had also said that because it was the first day of business for the Yao clan, they would receive such treatment. In the future, such a thing would not happen again. After all, any auction house would only settle the goods with the money, and there was no such thing as payment after payment. And Cheng Wu was not afraid that the item would be bought off because they could not afford it. Because in this auction, earning money was not the main purpose. They were just trying to cast a long line to catch the big fish. This bait was obviously very successful. After tonight, the Yao clan would truly be famous in the divine realm. Just as Uncle Long and the others were filled with joy, a shrill scream suddenly entered their ears. Everyone's expression changed immediately. What was that sound? Old man, is the soundproofing of your Yao family building that bad? This won't do. Ao Jia laughed and teased after hearing the voice. Go to hell. The Yao family building soundproofing is pretty good, but the sound is too sharp, so no matter how good the soundproofing is, it can't block it. Uncle Long said helplessly. Then, he instructed Cheng Wu, go and see what happened. Deal with it, so as not to disturb the other guests. Yes. Yes, Cheng Wu replied before turning around and leaving. Ao Jia glanced at Cheng Wu's back and looked at Uncle Long with a meaningful smile. However, Uncle Long was very calm and composed. It was obvious that no accident could affect him. Then, Uncle Long said to Ao Jia, who was full, Old man Ao, it's getting late. I'll get someone to arrange a room for you. You have a good rest. What? You're just letting me stay here. Aojia said in disbelief. What else? Uncle Long's face was filled with a matter-of-fact expression. I don't want to live here. I want to live with you. Aojia said. Once he said this, Leng Ruoxue and the rest were in a mess again. These words, no matter how they were heard, were so ambiguous. At the thought of this, Leng Ruoxue and the rest turned their heads away, not looking at the two of them to avoid them from feeling embarrassed. You're staying with me? It was not impossible. However, the money you paid is not enough, so, Uncle Long did not finish his sentence. Instead, he looked at Aojia with a you-know-it expression. You're into money. Aojia's anger rose again. This old thing knew better than anyone how to annoy him, but he could not do anything to him. This fact made him depressed. Yes, yes. Uncle Long nodded his head vigorously. He did not mind Aojia's comment at all. In fact, he was very happy. This meant that he had been very successful in amassing money. Aojia was at a loss for words. He glared at Uncle Dragon for a long time before he reluctantly took out another storage ring and handed it to him. When Lu Feng and the others saw this, they immediately wanted to bow down and worship Uncle Long. Uncle Long took the ring and said to Aojia as if he was summoning a puppy, Little Ao, come with big brother. Little Ao? Leng Ruoxue and the rest were speechless. This form of address was too. However, Uncle Long was rather calm. On the other hand, Aojia's face was a little dark. Brother Xiaolong, let's go. Aojia gritted his teeth. Although he looked calm, his eyes that were spitting fire proved his anger. Hee. Let's go. Uncle Long did not mind being called Little Long. Hence, he happily pulled Aojia back to the Leng family's main residence. Leng Ruoxue and the rest were thrown to the back of his mind. When Leng Ruoxue saw this, she felt helpless. Coincidentally, Chengwu came to report that the one who had let out the ear-piercing scream was the first elder of the Yao family. However, he had already warned the two of them. They would probably hold back and not go too far. When they heard this, Leng Ruoxue and the others left the Yao clan tower with boundless sympathy for the Yao clan's first elder. The next day, everyone was eating breakfast when they saw Chengwu rush into the dining room with a depressed expression. Chengwu, what happened? Leng Ruoxue asked indifferently. Miss, the Yao family has been rescued. Chengwu said gloomily. His face was filled with self-blame. How could this be? Why haven't we heard anything about it? Leng Ruoxue was a little surprised. Since when did the Yao family become so efficient, appearing and disappearing like a ghost? She was in disbelief. Yesterday, the servants who stayed at the Yao clan's building were all drugged, so the Yao clan's people were rescued very smoothly. Almost no one noticed, and they did not trigger our defensive formation. Chengwu explained. Oh. Did anyone get hurt? Leng Ruoxue asked with concern. It was fine to save the Yao family, but if someone hurt her people, she would never let them off. No one is injured. Chengwu hurriedly said. That's good. Leng Ruoxue was relieved. Then, she turned her beautiful eyes to Uncle Long and asked, Uncle Long, the Yao family has been rescued. How should we deal with this matter? What for? You'll have to return in the same way he saved her. Uncle Long laughed evilly. Then, he glanced at Aojia and said, Little Ao, do you think what I said is right? Yes, that's right. Aojia nodded in agreement, his face was still gloating. You're tactful, you traitor. Uncle Dragon rolled his eyes at Aojia and said in an unpleasant tone. How am I a traitor? Didn't you hand over all the money you earned? Aojia said as if he had been wronged. Ah. Leng Ruoxue and the others were at a loss when they saw their reactions. What was going on? Chapter 1998, Inferno, 3, Shuai. This guy is a spy sent by the Yao family's old brat to keep us in check so that he can save people. Uncle Long saw the question marks on everyone's faces and explained. Arg! It can't be. When Lu Feng heard this, he widened his eyes in disbelief. He looked at Uncle Long, then at Ao Jie. In the end, he came to the conclusion that the head of the Yao family was retarded to actually get Uncle Long's friend to be a spy. Although the two of them had never been friends, anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the two of them had a deep relationship. Yes. I'm a spy. Ao Jie said excitedly. Then, he pointed at Uncle Dragon and added, however, I've given all the money I earned to this guy. My ass. You're clearly the one paying for the food and accommodation. Uncle Long quickly retorted. That's what I earned. Ao Jie said stubbornly. So what? That doesn't change the fact that you accepted money from that Yao family brat to be a spy here. Uncle Long wasn't that easy to talk to. How can you do this? Am I not your spy? Ao Jie felt a little wronged. He had taken the initiative to explain the purpose of his visit at the first moment. Who knew that this damn old man would not let him off? It was really infuriating. No. We're enemies, you said it yourself. Uncle Dragon glanced at Ao Jie and said indifferently. Humph. If you didn't know that we're enemies, do you think that old brat of the Yao family would come after me? Ao Jie asked back angrily. Yes. In the eyes of outsiders, he and Uncle Long were mortal enemies. But in fact, apart from fighting every time they met, they were very close in private. However, they were too lazy to explain to the public that they were enemies, so the misunderstanding continued to this day. However, this misunderstanding was not without benefits for them. At least, it reduced a lot of danger for both of them. It was a tragedy for those who came to deal with them. However, Len Ruoxue finally understood what was going on. In order to pin them down and make it easier for him to save the people, the head of the Yao family bribed Ao Jie to be a spy and find a way to hinder Uncle Long. However, he did not expect that the person he thought was an enemy was actually a friend. This was such a terrible result. Of course, the tragic one was definitely the head of the Yao family. However, he deserved it. Who asked him to harbor such ill intentions? At the thought of this, Len Ruoxue felt a little sympathy for the old man. Originally, he could have used money to redeem the Yao family, but this time, he was afraid that he would have to spend even more money. She didn't know what Uncle Long had done to the Yao family, but she was sure that even if the Yao family had been rescued, they wouldn't have had a good time. Otherwise, Uncle Long wouldn't have remained so calm after hearing that the Yao family had been rescued. After hearing Ao Jie's words, Uncle Dragon took a long time before he said, all right. Since you didn't make any big mistakes, I'll forgive you for being a spy. Uncle Long put on a magnanimous expression. However, Len Ruoxue felt that Ao Jie could not be considered a simple spy. He should be called Spaceless Tunnel. Hee hee. Len Ruoxue had not expected things to turn out so dramatically. However, she knew very well that if the Yao family head were to find out about this, he would definitely be so angry that he would vomit blood. And in reality, Len Ruoxue had guessed correctly. After saving his junior, the head of the Yao family was in a good mood, but soon, he couldn't smile anymore. This was because all the captured members of the Yao family had been drugged and had lost all their cultivation. This fact shocked him. However, he quickly calmed down. Then, he found the alchemists supported by the family and asked them to refine the antidote for the Yao family members who were drugged. Unfortunately, after the Yao family's alchemists checked the condition of the poisoned clansmen, they all shook their heads helplessly. They couldn't find out what kind of medicine these clansmen had been poisoned with, so they naturally couldn't refine the antidote. More importantly, the antidote was not something that could be refined overnight, and the situation of those clansmen was not too good. They were afraid that before they could refine the antidote, those clansmen would have died. Therefore, they didn't dare to take the risk. After all, the first elder of the Yao family was among those clansmen. However, the Yao family's first elder's appearance was truly miserable. Not only was he poisoned by an unknown poison, but he was also tortured until he was covered in wounds, and it was a terrible sight. In the main hall of the Yao family. The Yao family head's face was dark as he sat in the main seat. The elders below him still didn't dare to breathe loudly and tried to lower their presence so that they wouldn't be treated as cannon fodder by the Yao family head. The reason why the head of the Yao family was so angry was because he had received a letter from Uncle Long. In the letter, he said that he had taken the person away but didn't pay. He was asked to pay the ransom within half a month, otherwise, he would bear the consequences. He also told him that if the clansmen he saved didn't get the antidote in time, they would only live for half a month at most. He had to hurry up. This news made the head of the Yao family furious. However, he couldn't do anything to Uncle Long, so he could only sulk in his heart. How could his descendants still have half a month to live? The head of the Yao family didn't believe that. He even held a trace of hope in his heart, thinking that Uncle Long was deliberately scaring him. So, after receiving the letter from Uncle Long, he didn't think about the matter of ransom at first. Instead, he sent someone to the Alchemist Guild headquarters, hoping to ask an alchemist from the headquarters to refine pills for his family. In order to show the importance they attached to the Yao family, the Alchemist Guild headquarters specially sent their best alchemist to the Yao family after receiving this business order. However, after seeing the situation of the Yao family's first elder and the others, that alchemist just kept shaking his head and said the same words as the Yao family's alchemist. In the end, he even suggested that the Yao family head should find the person who had drugged them. This fact made the head of the Yao family even more depressed. This alchemist had a very high position in the Alchemist Guild headquarters, second only to the vice president of the Alchemist Guild headquarters. Moreover, he also had a pivotal position in the divine realm, so his words carried a lot of weight. This was why the Yao clan's head was even more conflicted. That alchemist had also said that the great elder and the others couldn't afford to delay. They had to find the person who had poisoned them as soon as possible, or else their lives would be in danger. Just because of this conclusion that his life was in danger, the head of the Yao family was so depressed that he almost vomited blood. Therefore, his face had been black for the past few days, and the pressure in the Yao family had never been so low before. After a long time, the head of the Yao family, who was secretly annoyed, opened his mouth and said something familiar. Who has a good idea? Tell me. Fuck. At this moment, he really hated himself to death. Why did he find trouble with the Yao clan for no reason? If they wanted to build a house similar to the Yao family's main residence, they could just call it whatever they wanted. If he didn't see it, he wouldn't be bothered and would just pretend that he didn't see anything. Wouldn't everything be fine? Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret. At the same time, he was also a little angry with Uncle Long. Why didn't you say that you were the owner of the Yao family building earlier? If he had known that the Yao family building belonged to Uncle Long, he wouldn't have sent anyone to cause trouble no matter how angry he was. However, it was too late now. He really wanted to cry. When he saw that the Yao family's elders couldn't even let out a fart when something happened, the fire in his heart burned brighter and brighter. This bunch of useless fools, the Yao family has really raised them for nothing. It was completely useless. The more the head of the Yao family thought about it, the more disappointed he became. Then, he shouted, "Everyone has to give me a solution. Otherwise, you don't have to continue being an elder. Family head, the one who tied the bell needs to untie the bell. I think if we really want to solve this matter, we have to go to Uncle Long." After a long while, Yao Ji hesitated before mustering the courage to speak. In fact, he had said these words before. Unfortunately, the family head could not bear to give up the conditions of the ransom, so he did not agree to pay. However, the family head denied this matter, which meant that he had not completed his task. Therefore, the promise that the family head had made to him naturally did not count. He still had some complaints about the family head, but he did not dare to show it. However, this was definitely a good opportunity. Things were back to square one, so he tried to open his mouth. When the family head heard his suggestion, he only frowned slightly but did not show any anger. Yao Ji's heart, which had been in her throat, also calmed down a little. After hearing Yao Ji's words, the head of the Yao family turned his gaze to the other elders and continued to ask, "Do any of you have a better idea?" Seeing this, the elders present quickly chimed in, "Master, Elder Ji's suggestion is wise. Let's just pay up." AI. That was the only way. Elder Ge, I think it's better for you to handle this matter. Sighing, the head of the Yao family finally relented. In fact, when the alchemist at the Alchemist Guild headquarters suggested that he find the person who had drugged him, he had thought of paying. Unfortunately, as the head of the family, he couldn't bring himself to do so. He always felt that he was a loser this way, and Yao Ji's words gave him a way out, so he took the opportunity to climb up. However, he swore that he would stay far away from Uncle Long, Leng Ruoxue, and the others in the future. Those people were all blood-sucking demons. He couldn't be provoked. Once bitten by a snake, he was afraid of ropes for 10 years. In his heart, Uncle Long and the others were like a flood and fierce beasts that he could not avoid. A day later, Yao Ji once again arrived at the land of demons. This time, it had been nearly 10 days since he last came to the land of demons. However, in these 10 days, the Yao family had been in deep waters and scorching fire, while the land of demons had become popular. Especially the Yao clan tower at the foot of the mountain in the land of demons. It was extremely popular. It could be said that everyone in the divine realm knew about it. Of course, this was all thanks to the amazing auction that the Yao clan tower had held on the day of its opening. Chapter 1999, He reaped what he sowed. 1. In that auction, only 10 items were auctioned. However, each item was extremely rare. It had caused all the families in the divinity to go crazy for quite a few days. Many people had even thought about the Yao clan's next auction. However, the time of the Yao clan's auction was random. Therefore, many families had specially sent people to stay at the Yao clan's building for a long time so that they would not miss any auction. Therefore, it could be said that the Yao clan's publicity plan was very successful. The current Yao clan house was even regarded by many as one of the top 10 most famous houses in the divine realm, and the Yao clan house had only opened for 10 days. This result made many top forces envious. Even the Yao family was jealous of the Yao clan. As Yao Ji was thinking about this, she had already appeared at the entrance of the Yao family building. Compared to the quota on the first day of business, the Yao clan building no longer had a limit on the number of customers. However, the Yao clan building was often full, so as long as the number of customers was full, the Yao clan building would not be able to enter. "We're full today. Please come early tomorrow." Before Yao Ji could say anything, the burly man guarding the entrance of the Yao family building spoke up. Yao Ji was speechless. He hadn't even explained his intentions. Why was he being driven away? It was really too infuriating. That was what Yao Ji thought. However, he still put on a smile and said very politely, "I'm Yao Ji. I would like to see Chenggu. Please inform him. See Manager Cheng." "I'm sorry, even if you know Steward Cheng, I can't open the back door for you. Today's quota is already full, please come next time," the burly man said, leaving no room for discussion. In fact, he still remembered the person in front of him. Wasn't he that person from the Yao family? Furthermore, he was definitely making things difficult for Yao Ji on purpose. Every time he thought of what the Yao family had done a few days ago, the anger in his heart would not come out. Therefore, he would naturally not be nice to Yao Ji. "Ah. You've misunderstood, I'm not here to stay, I really have something to discuss with Chenggu." When Yao Ji heard the burly man's words, she felt a lump in her throat. How could this person be so unreasonable? This was really too much. However, in order to meet Chengwu, he was going to risk it all. "What is it?" The burly man sized up Yao Ji and asked doubtfully. "Could it be that he's here to find something to do?" The burly man mumbled to himself again, and when Yao Ji heard his mumbling, she almost went crazy. However, Yao Ji had been consoling herself in her heart. Endure. Endure it. After all, he had a favor to ask of others. Yao Ji suppressed his anger and took a few deep breaths. It's about the ransom. Yao Ji said after taking a few deep breaths. Oh. Wait a moment then. After the burly man finished speaking, he sized up Yao Ji a few more times before turning to enter the Yao family building. At this time, another person guarding the door took over the burly man's shift and continued to size up Yao Ji. Their judgmental looks one after another really drove Yao Ji crazy. However, he was here to ask for compensation, so he couldn't fall out with these waiters first. Otherwise, they would think that he was insincere. So, he continued to bear with it. The other party seemed to know that Yao Ji would not get angry, so he sized her up even more unscrupulously. Just as Yao Ji was feeling uneasy and the anger in his heart was growing, Cheng Wu finally walked out of the Yao family building. When Cheng Wu saw Yao Ji, he was slightly surprised. Then, he put on a smile and said, "If it isn't Elder Yao Ji. What wind has blown you here?" When Cheng Wu said this, he seemed to be very surprised. However, Yao Ji could not help but curse in her heart. Why are you acting dumb? Didn't he say that he was here to redeem someone? Still pretending in front of him. Now, Yao Ji truly felt that these people in front of her were too despicable. Hee. Manager Cheng, I'm here to talk about the ransom. Although Yao Ji was a little angry, he did not dare to show it on his face. Instead, he had to smile. This fact made him quite depressed. Ransom? Has the Yao family decided to use money to redeem her? However, wasn't she already rescued by the Yao family? What ransom? Elder Yao Ji, you're too funny. Cheng Wu said with a faint smile. His face was filled with disbelief, and his words made Yao Ji feel very embarrassed. Yes. The Yao family had indeed rescued her, but unfortunately, the person they had rescued was half dead, so how could the Yao family not come back to make up for it? Moreover, wasn't this also Uncle Long's intention? But now, Cheng Wu was acting in front of him. It really made people look down on him. Yao Ji could not help but think to himself. Even though Yao Ji despised Cheng Wu's act of feigning ignorance, he still had to put on a guilty expression and said, our Yao family made a wrong decision and used improper means to take her away. The head of the family is very regretful, so he ordered me to deliver the ransom. In fact, he felt his face burning when he said those words, but he couldn't say that the Yao family only offered the ransom because the Yao family they saved was about to die, could he? If that was the case, where would the Yao family put their face? When Cheng Wu heard Yao Ji's words, he also felt contempt in his heart. The Yao family clearly had no choice but to send the ransom. In the end, Yao Ji actually lied through his teeth to save the Yao family's face. However, he was such a kind person that he would not expose Yao Ji. Therefore, after hearing Yao Ji's words, he only smiled faintly and said, Elder Yao Ji, it's really admirable that you're here to deliver the ransom after saving her. However, I can't make the decision on this matter, so I'm afraid you've come to the wrong person. After Cheng Wu said these words, he sneered in his heart. Acting. Let's just pretend together. Let's see who can pretend better than who. I would like to ask Steward Cheng to introduce me to Uncle Long. Yao Ji thought about it when he heard Cheng Wu's words. In fact, he had come to see Uncle Long. However, if Cheng Wu did not help him, the others would probably not care about him. Otherwise, he would not have sought to see Cheng Wu first. That's not a problem. However, Uncle Long is not here now. Cheng Wu said with a troubled expression. Arg. Not in. Where did he go? Upon hearing that Uncle Long was not around, Yao Ji immediately became anxious. He could wait, but the Yao family could not afford to wait. If they couldn't bring the antidote back in time, all the Yao family members, including the Grand Elder, would lose their lives. I don't know. A few days ago, someone came to look for Uncle Long and the two of them left together. Cheng Wu said bluntly. Then, Then is there anyone who can make the decision? Yao Ji's voice trembled. Her body was like a fallen leaf in the autumn wind, and her face was ashen. No more. The moment Cheng Wu finished speaking, Yao Ji's face turned even paler. After a long while. Only then did Yao Ji come back to her senses. She grabbed Cheng Wu's arm tightly and pleaded, "Brother Cheng, you have to help me. I can't just leave him to die." In such a short time, Cheng Wu had changed from Manager Cheng to Brother Cheng. The gap was huge. Chapter 2000, You Reap What You Sow, 2. However, Cheng Wu was not confused by the address. Instead, he asked in confusion, "Why do you say that, Elder Yao Ji?" He continued to pretend that he did not know anything. "Brother Yao, it's not very convenient to talk here with so many people coming and going. Can you invite me in to sit?" Even though he was scolding Cheng Wu in his heart, Yao Ji spoke out loud. He did not want to stand at the entrance of the Yao family building and discuss the Yao family's matters with Cheng Wu. The walls had ears, and if they were overheard by others, the Yao family would really lose all face. People coming and going. Cheng Wu laughed out loud when he heard those words. At this moment, there was almost no one in front of the Yao family's building. Even though Yao Ji said that it was not convenient to talk at the door, they seemed to have already said a lot. Moreover, the guests who were currently staying in the Yao clan building more or less knew about the grudges between the Yao clan and their Yao clan, so how could this be a secret? However, since Yao Ji had said so, Cheng Wu had to give him some face. Hence, he made an inviting gesture and welcomed Yao Ji into the Yao family building. After entering the Yao family building, Yao Ji suppressed the shock in his heart and followed Cheng Wu up to the second floor. This was the first time he had come to the Yao clan building after it had opened for business. He had been here once before, but the shock he had received from the Yao clan building was far less than what he had received this time. Yes. This time, the Yao family building had gained a lot of popularity. The people in the Yao family building had obvious satisfaction on their faces. Seeing this, Yao Ji could only be surprised. They walked into the private room that he had been to the last time. As soon as the two sat down face to face, an attendant immediately served tea and snacks. "Elder Yao Ji, have a taste of the Yao family's desserts," Cheng Wu said enthusiastically. "Then this old master won't be polite." With that, Yao Ji politely picked up a piece of golden dessert. After eating it, her eyes immediately widened. This pastry filling was actually filled with spiritual energy. This was really too rare. The food for cultivators was naturally the more spiritual energy there was, the better it was. Not only did this snack satisfy their needs, but it was also extremely delicious. AI. No wonder this place became famous overnight. Just the desserts were already so amazing, not to mention the other things in the Yao family building. It seemed that the Yao clan truly lived up to its reputation. Yao Ji pondered. Cheng Wu, on the other hand, just sat opposite him and watched Yao Ji's reaction without saying a word. When Yao Ji was done sighing, the two of them returned to the main topic. Yao Ji looked at Cheng Wu with an embarrassed expression and slowly said, "Brother Cheng, to tell you the truth, although the Yao family has rescued the members of the Yao family that you have captured, those people are in very bad condition. They won't be able to live for more than a few days, so the family head has ordered me to send the ransom in the hope that it can be exchanged for a few antidotes. Therefore, I hope that Brother Cheng can fulfill my wish." Although Yao Ji's words were very subtle, he felt that the two of them were well aware of this, so there was naturally no need to make it too clear. "Elder Yao Ji, it's not that I'm leaving you to die, but I'm really powerless. The antidotes you want are all in Uncle Long's hands, but he's not here now, so I can't do anything about it," Cheng Wu said apologetically, but he couldn't help but sneer in his heart. The Yao family really won't shed tears until they see the coffin. If he had known that this day would come, what would he have done? Did he think that everything would be fine after he saved her? If they didn't have any tricks up their sleeves, how could they have let the Yao family save them so easily? And now that the Yao family had taken the initiative to come to their door, they naturally had to carry out their advantage to the end. Apart from Uncle Long, is there no one else who can make the decision? Yao Ji's expression was gloomy as he asked with a hint of disappointment. Actually, what he wanted to ask was whether he could find a way to get Uncle Long back. Unfortunately, he never said it. I really don't have any. Cheng Wu didn't even think about it. Then, he continued, Elder Yao Ji, how about this? I'll arrange a place for you to stay. You can stay here for now, and I'll think of a way to send someone to find Uncle Long. If I find him, I'll let you know immediately. Good. Become brothers. Thank you so much. After hearing Wan Wu's words, Yao Ji thought for a moment and then said gratefully. Then, Cheng Wu specially arranged a room for Yao Ji in the Yao family building. After he settled Yao Ji in, he returned to the Leng family's main residence. In the garden of the Leng family's main residence, Uncle Long and Ao Jia were sitting on the stone chairs in the garden, drinking tea and chatting. When they saw Cheng Wu, Uncle Long smiled and said, Little brat Cheng, why have you returned? Uncle Long, Yao Ji is here. He's here to deliver the ransom. Cheng Wu smiled as he reported. Oh. I think the Yao family should be sending people here by now. However, well, just do as we've agreed and leave him hanging for a few days before meeting him. Uncle Long said with a smirk. Old whale, don't play with those half-dead Yao family members to death. If you don't receive the ransom, where are you going to cry? Ao Jia, who was sitting opposite Uncle Dragon, could not help but remind him. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing, Uncle Dragon gave Ao Jia a reassuring look. Then, he turned to Cheng Wu, young man Cheng, spend more time with him over the next few days. If everything goes well, don't forget to tell Yao Ji about my dissatisfaction. I understand. When does Uncle Long plan to meet him? Cheng Wu asked. In 3 days. Uncle Long said after calculating the time. Old whale, you're just trying to scare the Yao family, right? Do you have to count the time like this? Hearing Uncle Long's words, Ao Jia laughed coquettishly. None of your business. You traitor. Uncle Dragon rolled his eyes at Ao Jia and said in an unpleasant tone. Why are you bringing up old scores again? Didn't I hand over all the money I earned? Upon hearing this, Ao Jia almost exploded and his face was filled with grievances. Hee. I'm happy. Uncle Long said with a smile. Cheng Wu, who was at the side, turned around and left when he heard the two of them start to bicker again. However, after he left, the two of them started quarreling and almost went all out again. In the end, the two of them even went in front of Leng Ruoxue, asking her to be the judge. In the living room, Leng Ruoxue, who was sitting on the chair, looked at Uncle Long and Ao Jia with a headache. She did not know what to say. Girl, don't be afraid, just tell the truth. Is this guy a traitor? Uncle Long looked at Leng Ruoxue and asked loudly. Little girl, you have to have a conscience. You can't just accuse people. Ao Jia said. When they said that, Leng Ruoxue's head hurt even more. How boring were these two people? He's actually still thinking about this? Leng Ruoxue could not understand. All of them added together were so old. Why did they still look like children? Sigh. What a headache. Other than having a headache, Leng Ruoxue felt even more troubled. Because she could not afford to offend either of them. It was reasonable for her to be on Uncle Long's side. After all, they had known each other for a long time. However, when she thought about the last time when they were arguing, she stood on Uncle Long's side based on the principle of not siding with an outsider. She still had a lingering fear of Ao Jia's reaction. Chapter 2001, You Reap What You Sow, 3, because that time, Ao Jia knew that he was not going to help him. He actually disregarded his image and wailed on the ground in front of everyone. Instantly, Ao Jia's image as a powerful expert took a huge hit, which made them even more shocked. Thinking back to that jaw-dropping scene, Leng Ruoxue could not help but wipe the cold sweat off her forehead. She decided that she would not help anyone this time. Uncle Long, Uncle Ao, as a junior, I really can't comment on the matter between you two. So, I'll stay neutral this time. Leng Ruoxue hesitated for a moment before speaking. Now, all of them called Ao Jia Uncle Ao, mainly because the words senior old man Ao were too hard to pronounce. Leng Ruoxue had expressed her thoughts, but Uncle Long was not satisfied. He looked at Leng Ruoxue with a face full of resentment and said, "Shuer, you can't help an outsider. This guy is a spy and a traitor. We can't just let this matter go." Ugh. Then what do you want to do, Uncle Long? Leng Ruoxue was speechless after hearing Uncle Long's words. However, she could not be blamed for this. Uncle Long had not thought of pursuing this matter before, and Ao Jia was not a real spy. However, when the two of them started arguing, Uncle Long wanted to pursue this matter. She was really helpless. I told you I'm not a spy, and I'm not a traitor. Don't bring up old scores. Don't forget, I gave you all the money I earned. If I'm a traitor, you're definitely an accomplice. Just as Uncle Long finished his sentence, Ao Jia also started to roar. However, looking at his red eyes, Leng Ruoxue really suspected that this guy was going to release a flood again. It was so terrifying. At the thought of this, Leng Ruoxue stood up and smiled faintly. Uncle Long, Uncle Ao, I'm actually quite envious of the deep friendship between the two of you. As the saying goes, beating is affection, scolding is love. So, I'm happy for the two of you every day when I see you loving each other. Your relationship is really good. After she finished speaking, Leng Ruoxue held the two of them's hands and placed them on top of each other. Her beautiful face was filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred, causing Uncle Long and Ao Jia to be in a daze. After a long time, only then did the two of them suddenly come back to their senses and quickly jumped 3 feet away from each other, as if the other party was bacteria, their expressions full of horror. Oh my God! What happened just now? Why did they feel so strange? At this moment, Leng Ruoxue smiled and said, I'm really envious of the relationship between the two of you. This time, the two of them heard it clearly. He also understood. Following that, the two of them did not even greet Leng Ruoxue before they dashed out of the living room. Seeing that they had finally left, Leng Ruoxue finally heaved a sigh of relief. AI. Fortunately, they were scared away. Otherwise, he would go crazy if they continued to fight. However, it didn't seem right to scare the two of them away like this. Hee hee. Shuer, you're so naughty. At this moment, the evildoer sitting at the side couldn't help but chuckle. AI. I have no other choice. Leng Ruoxue said innocently. Yes, if it wasn't for your words that scared them away, I would have kicked them out in a while, the demon said honestly. Ah. Freak, you're the best. Leng Ruoxue deliberately put on an expression of admiration. In reality, she wanted to kick him as well, but she did not have the strength to do so. Just like that, Leng Ruoxue temporarily lived a peaceful life. However, compared to Leng Ruoxue and the rest's carefreeness, Yao Ji's days were like walking on thin ice. He lived in anticipation every day, but after seeing martial arts master Cheng, he would only receive disappointment every time. When Cheng Wu saw this, he comforted him, Elder Yao Ji, life and death are up to fate. If the Yao family's first elder and the others really can't make it, then please restrain your grief. Although they were words of comfort, they did not sound good in Yao Ji's ears. 3 days later, Yao Ji was haggard. He also had dark circles under his eyes. After seeing Yao Ji's state, Cheng Wu finally told him some good news. Uncle Long was back. Upon hearing this, Yao Ji immediately became extremely excited. It was still all right. Fortunately, he made it in time. If the other party had returned a few days later, he would have been able to pack up and leave. Quickly take me to Uncle Long. Yao Ji, who had heard the good news, grabbed Chen Wu's arm tightly. She could not wait any longer. Wait. Don't worry, let me finish. Chen Wu pulled out his arm and looked at Yao Ji helplessly before he continued, this matter can't be rushed, we need to think about it at length. We can't take the long term, time waits for no one. Yao Ji said anxiously. Uncle Long and the rest were not in a hurry, but the Yao family was. Then you have to let me finish. Chen Wu revealed a helpless expression. Then hurry up and tell me. Yao Ji urged. He could tell that if he did not let Chen Wu speak, this guy would not bring him to see Uncle Long. AI. To tell you the truth, the kidnapping of the Yao family has made Uncle Long very angry, so if you want to pay the ransom for the antidote, I'm afraid it won't be easy. In addition, I'm afraid that the conditions that Uncle Long mentioned before will no longer be applicable, so you'd better be prepared. Sighing, Chen Wu revealed a face full of sincerity. What other conditions will Uncle Long raise? Hearing Wan Wu's words, Yao Ji quickly sought advice. In fact, before coming here, the Yao family had already prepared for this. He had even brought more money, afraid that Uncle Long would ask for additional conditions to deal with the emergency. However, he could completely understand this. If the other party and the Yao family switched positions now, the Yao family would not let go of this opportunity to make the other party bleed. I'm not sure about the details, but I'm sure it won't be the same as before. Chen Wu said after thinking. I know. Brother Cheng, quickly bring me to Uncle Long. Yao Ji nodded and said. Please follow me. Cheng Wu nodded and then brought Yao Ji to another private room. At that moment, there were only Uncle Long and Ao Jia in the private room. Of course, Ao Jia was only there to watch the fun. After Yao Ji entered the private room, he saw Uncle Long as if he had seen his own father. He was very enthusiastic. Uncle Long, I'm finally able to meet you. Yao Ji's eyes were filled with tears of excitement, and her body was trembling slightly. Ah! Calm down. Hearing this, Uncle Long's forehead was full of black lines. This child from the Yao family was not in a normal mood. Did he take the wrong medicine? He could not help but think to himself. However, it was fortunate that Yao Ji did not know what he was thinking. Otherwise, he would have been depressed to death. Uncle Long, I've been waiting for you for days. Let's talk about the ransom now. Yao Ji calmed his agitated emotions and went straight to the point. Actually, even if Chen Wu had not reminded him, he knew that the conditions from before were not suitable anymore. Now, the Yao family did not seem to have the right to bargain. After all, the lives of dozens of the Yao family members were in the hands of the other party. However, could he hate her? It can't. This was because Yao Ji knew very well that the Yao family had started this matter first, but they had not been able to suppress the other party, so they had to pay a painful price. Alright. However, I have to say this first. It's one thing for your Yao clan to drug our waiters in order to save people, but you also poisoned my guests, causing them to almost destroy the Yao clan building. So, I've already promised them that I'll get compensation on their behalf. Fortunately, your Yao family still has some brains and didn't kill anyone. Otherwise, it wouldn't be as simple as compensation. Uncle Long said indifferently. Yao Ji's heart sank when he heard Uncle Long's words. In fact, he knew that the master did not kill anyone out of anger, not because he did not want to, but because he was worried about Uncle Long. Otherwise, he would not have just knocked them out. That didn't seem like the master's style. But now, he was a little glad that Uncle Long's reputation had made the family head apprehensive. Otherwise, this matter would not have been settled. At the thought of this, Yao Ji said in a very good-tempered manner, "This is what I should do." Yao Ji was so easy to talk to mainly because he understood that he had to compensate those people as well. Hence, he had no room to refuse. He could only do whatever Uncle Long wanted. Seeing that Yao Ji was so understanding, Uncle Long was very satisfied and comforted him. Yao family's kid. Go back and tell that old man in your family not to be so anxious. You should know that things that can be settled with money are not big problems. After all, money can still be earned, but if the person is gone, or if it causes public anger, it will not be worth it for the Yao family. Yes. I'll pass on Uncle Long's words to the head of the family. Yao Ji said very humbly, but in her heart, she could not help but wonder if the family head would faint from anger if he heard these words. Money could be earned again, but the money that had been given away could not be earned back in a short time. Then, Uncle Long did not waste any more time. He handed 2 more lists to Yao Ji. Yao Ji took them and glanced at them. Her heart started to beat uncontrollably. The items on the list were more than half the amount from the last time. Furthermore, this did not include the compensation for the Yao family's guests. Looking at the items on the list, Yao Ji wanted to cry but had no tears. If he had known this would happen, he would have used money to redeem the person back then and save himself from causing so much trouble. AI. Today, he finally knew what it meant to reap what you sow. However, what could he say? When he first returned to the Yao family, he had suggested to the head of the family to release the person according to the other party's request. Unfortunately, the head of the family and a portion of the elders in the family had firmly opposed it. His words carried little weight, and not many elders agreed with his proposal. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been such a thing. Chapter 2002, Entering the House, 1, AI. Look at how well he said it. Anything that could be settled with money was not a problem. It was a pity that the elders in the family did not understand this principle. Although he knew that he didn't have much say in the Yao family, he now deeply understood the importance of having a high position and power. If he were the first elder of the Yao family, who would dare to oppose his words? The clan head would also pay more attention to it. Unfortunately, he could only think about it in his heart. Seeing that Yao Ji seemed to be deep in thought, Uncle Long did not disturb him. Yao Ji was also lost in her own thoughts. After a long time, the depressed Yao Ji suddenly remembered Uncle Long's existence. He looked at Uncle Long apologetically and said, "Uncle Long, I'm sorry. I was a little distracted." Hee. It's normal for young people to be distracted occasionally, but don't delay the important business. The compensation we asked for is here. If you don't dare to make the decision, quickly contact your family's ancestor. Uncle Long reminded with a faint smile. Uncle Long, I can make the decision. I agree to compensate you according to the value on this list. Yao Ji said bluntly. In fact, under such circumstances, the Yao family did not have the right to refuse. Even if the other party wanted all of the Yao family's property, the Yao family could only give it to him with both hands. After all, the Yao family could not afford to lose its members. Those half-dead members were all the elites of the family. Without them, the Yao family's strength would suffer a great loss. Therefore, the severity of the situation did not allow them to refuse. Are you sure? Do you really not need to ask your family's ancestor? Upon hearing Yao Ji's words, Uncle Long seemed to be worried. I'm sure. There's no need to ask the ancestor. The ancestor has given me full authority to handle this matter. Yao Ji said, yes. The family head had said that as long as the compensation the other party demanded did not exceed the value of the items he had brought over, there was no need to ask him. As for the family head, he should be so angry that he went into seclusion. Out of sight, out of mind. The compensation that the other party asked for was slightly lower than the property he had prepared, which was within their budget. That was why he dared to make his own decision. However, even if the other party's compensation was less than the property they had prepared, it would still be a pain for the Yao family. However, they could not refuse. From now on, the Yao family would probably be depressed to the point of vomiting blood. In the future, they would have to live frugally. That's good. This time, Uncle Long was completely relieved and praised Yao Ji. Yao family brat, you're a good person, unlike the rest of the Yao family, who are extremely annoying. Not bad. If you perform well in the future, you will definitely have a bright future. He even patted Yao Ji's shoulder to encourage her. "Thank you, Uncle Long." Yao Ji forced a smile. He politely declined Uncle Long's praise. However, he didn't expect that Uncle Long would hate the Yao family. This fact shocked him. It seemed that he had to restrain the Yao family from appearing in front of Uncle Long in the future. Otherwise, if there was another compensation like this, the Yao family would go bankrupt. No. The Yao family was already bankrupt now. If they were to do it again, the Yao family would probably go bankrupt. Hee. No need to be so polite, Yao family brat, since you've come to the Yao family tower, just stay here for a few more days. There will be an auction in a few days. Seeing that the negotiation was a success, Uncle Long was in a good mood and enthusiastically asked Yao Ji to stay. However, Yao Ji did not dare to stay any longer. If he stayed any longer, even if the Yao family paid the compensation, the Yao family members would be dead. Thus, he had to hurry back as soon as possible. Thinking of this, Yao Ji immediately handed over a few storage rings respectfully according to the compensation on the list. Uncle Long took them and scanned through them. The contents were clear at a glance. Then, Uncle Long's face bloomed like a flower. Compared to Uncle Long's happiness, Yao Ji's heart was filled with bitterness. In the future, the Yao family might not even be able to live as well as the top families, because they had no more money. Woo! Uncle Long glanced at the depressed Yao Ji and ignored him. Then, he handed him a small white jade bottle and said, "This is the antidote, but you can only take it away. I can't give you this small bottle. Put it in your own bottle and return it to me." Yao Ji's mouth twitched involuntarily at Uncle Long's words. "It's just a white jade bottle. Do you have to be so stingy?" He had given the other party several storage rings. He didn't even feel heartache. However, he believed that as long as he revealed the slightest bit of heartache, Uncle Long would definitely return the storage rings to him without a second thought. Unfortunately, he would not say anything. The Yao family couldn't afford to lose that face. Then, he helplessly moved the pills in Uncle Long's white jade bottle into his own medicine storage bottle. Then, he bade farewell to Uncle Long and the others before he left the Yao clan building as if he was running for his life. He wouldn't come to this damn place easily in the future. After Yao Ji left, Uncle Long was in a good mood and laughed wildly. Aojia couldn't take it anymore and said with disdain, "It's just a small amount of money, do you have to be like this?" It was really the behavior of an upstart. "AI. Don't say I know you. It's so embarrassing. A small amount of money. Parvenu behavior. Embarrassing. If you have the ability, go and earn this small amount of money for me. It just so happens that this lord doesn't have enough money to spend." Uncle Long said calmly. "TSK. Just you wait." Aojia said. Then, he turned to Cheng Wu and asked, "Brat Cheng, who else do you have to deal with? Tell me, I'll help you deal with them." What he meant by clean up was actually a robbery. However, this tribulation wasn't something that just anyone could hit. Otherwise, it would definitely cause public anger, so he could only rob the enemy. When Cheng Wu heard Aojia's words, his forehead was immediately filled with black lines. He thought to himself, this Uncle Ao is also someone who wishes for the world to be in chaos. However, he did mention the names of a few families obediently. Aojia frowned and said unhappily, "These families are too small. They don't have much money. Do they have any in the 8 divine domains?" "Ah. Among the enemies in the 8 god realms, other than the Wen family, the Yao family is the only one left. As for the other 6 families, we don't have any deep grudges with them, so," Cheng Wu said with a slight headache. However, he did not finish his sentence as he believed that Aojia would understand. As expected, Aojia's brows furrowed even more after he heard that. This was because no matter if it was the Wen family or the Yao family, they could no longer rob. Out of these 2 families, one had disappeared from the divinity while the other had just made a huge loss. There was nothing much to be gained from robbing them, so Ao Jia was worried. Seeing Ao Jia's worried expression, Uncle Long smiled and suggested, I know someone who's definitely rich, and he has a grudge against us. Who is it? Upon hearing this, Ao Jia immediately became lively and energetic. Fog Ice. Go and rob her. Uncle Long suggested. Chapter 2003, Entering the House, 2, Her. No. I can't afford to offend that woman now. Ao Jia rejected him without thinking. TSK. I thought you were not afraid of anything. So it wasn't he. Uncle Long provoked. Trying to goad me is useless. I can't even wait to avoid her, so why would I send myself to her? Isn't that the same as seeking death? Ao Jia said with a face full of fear. There's no one richer than her in the divine realm. AI. What a pity. Uncle Long sighed. Rimice. It sounded like a woman's name. Cheng Wu, who was at the side, was confused when he heard their conversation because he had no idea who Wu Xian was. However, when he saw that one of them was exclaiming and the other was showing fear, he made a bold guess that Wu Xian was most likely in a relationship with Ao Jia. Hence, he came to an important conclusion. Ao Jia probably owed a woman a love debt. In the end, he also sighed. You can't owe a woman a debt. Otherwise, he would be crushed to pieces. However, things were clearly not as simple as Cheng Wu had guessed. Uncle Long and Ao Jia did not know how to read minds. Otherwise, they would have given Cheng Wu a good beating. After settling the Yao family's matter, Uncle Long and Ao Jia bade farewell to Cheng Wu and returned to the Leng family's main residence on the mountain. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, the Yao clan building had been open for business for 3 months. In the past 3 months, the Yao clan had earned a lot of money. However, their main sources of income were the delicacies and the auctions they had arranged. They had not earned much from the special services. After the Yao family's people were rescued, it was Potion's subordinates who took on the exclusive service. However, these people all looked fierce, so not many people dared to ask for their service. Except for a few heavy-mouthed people, their business was very poor. But for these men, this was exactly what they wanted. Uncle Long turned a blind eye to their laziness and unwelcoming because he had made money. After all, these people had come for nothing. They didn't use much money, so he didn't care so much. And the current Yao clan house was no longer related to brothels. However, Uncle Long didn't mind. Although the brothel could make money, he was making much more money than the brothel, so he was happy to do so. In short, it was good as long as there was money to be earned. If the business was bad, he would have to think of another way. But looking at the current situation, the business of the Yao clan building was booming, so he didn't have to worry at all. Therefore, he just had to lie in bed and count the money every day. But now, he definitely belonged to the type of person who would count money until his hands cramped. However, other than gourmet food and auctions, the Yao clan house had added 2 new services, and that was pill and equipment refining. However, the remuneration he requested for those services was extremely high, because the Yao clan house had promised that the success rate would be above 80%, regardless of the pill or equipment. Unfortunately, after the launch of this convenience service, the business was bleak. In the garden of the Leng family's main residence, Leng Ruoxue and the demon had just walked into the garden when they heard a sorrowful sigh. Leng Ruoxue felt helpless. This was because the voice was Uncle Long's. Uncle Long had repeated the same words countless times. It seemed that ever since the Yao clan had introduced pill and tool refining services, Uncle Long had started to worry. AI. Why isn't there anyone here to refine pills or weapons? Uncle Long muttered to himself for the umpteenth time. Upon hearing this, Ao Jia, Master Ning, the first elder of the Craftsmen's Guild and the others in the garden did what they were doing with calm faces. They were not affected by him at all because they were used to hearing him. His ears were getting calluses from listening to them. Uncle Long. Leng Ruoxue called out after sighing. Little girl, you're here. AI. There's no business with the new service. Uncle Long said with a bitter face. This is normal. Len Ruoshua consoled Uncle Long. That's right. Uncle Long, the remuneration you said is too high. How can business be good? The first elder agreed. Ever since the pill and equipment refining services were launched, Uncle Long had set a sky-high price without even blinking. Even if it was just ordinary pills and equipment, the price was still sky-high. It would be strange if business was good. However, Uncle Long had his own reasons for doing so. After all, if the Yao clan's alchemy and smithing remuneration was not much different from the other alchemists and blacksmiths, the other alchemists and blacksmiths would have to starve with the success rate of over 80%. He was quite grateful to Uncle Long for this. This way, the other alchemists and blacksmiths would not be affected too much. At least, they would not go hungry. However, at the same time, their chances of refining high-grade pills would also be reduced. This had both advantages and disadvantages. However, he had no choice. This was the reality. Hi. I still think it's a little low. Uncle Long said indifferently after listening to the first elder. It's indeed a little low. At this time, the demon spoke. Ugh. When they heard someone echo Uncle Long's words, black lines immediately appeared on the foreheads of the few people present. They thought to themselves, are these two people planning to not make a business for 3 years and make a living for 3 years once they do? Seeing that someone agreed with him, Uncle Long was so excited that he jumped in front of the evildoer and said, Kid, you have good eyes. How could the price I set be high? I've decided that starting from tomorrow, the prices of alchemy and smithing will double. It's going to increase. I say, old whale, you really have money in your eyes. As soon as Uncle Dragon finished speaking, Aojia couldn't help but click his tongue. Of course it will increase. Otherwise, how can we display the status of our Yao clan building's exclusive alchemist and blacksmith? Uncle Long said with wide eyes. Then, he changed the topic and said, why are you still here? Hurry up and go home. I don't welcome you here. Uncle Long caught up with him again. This was definitely not the first time he had chased Aojia away. However, Aojia was enjoying his life here, so how could he bear to leave? Hence, he ignored Uncle Long's words and changed the topic. Little girl, what are we having for dinner tonight? When she heard Aojia's question, Len Ruoshua thought to herself, what a long conversation. However, she still replied politely, we'll have a buffet tonight. Yes, yes. Aojia nodded in satisfaction. He only knew about the concept of buffets after he came here. However, he liked it very much because buffets meant that he could eat whatever he wanted. He was a carnivore and definitely did not like to eat vegetables. The evening buffet is full of vegetarian dishes. Every meal in the future will be the same. Uncle Long added, not wanting to see Aoda being too proud. Chapter 2004, Entering the House, 3, Aojia was furious when he heard that. On what basis? Aojia jumped 3 times and his face turned red. Wasn't it too cruel to let carnivores be vegetarians? Vegetables are good for your health, especially carrots. So, you should eat more. Uncle Long suggested kindly. He knew that Aojia hated carrots the most. Damn it. I'm not a rabbit, why would I eat carrots? Aojia gritted his teeth in anger. He really wanted to bite someone. Carrots have high nutritional value, so don't be picky. Uncle Long laughed smugly. Hearing this, Aojia was so angry that his chest heaved up and down. It was obvious that he was furious and was brewing his battle intent. Len Ruoshua and the rest immediately left the battlefield upon seeing this. They did not want to be affected by the fight between the two of them. This was not the first time such a scene had happened. In the end, no one knew how the two of them managed to settle the food. The dinner was all dishes made with carrots as the main ingredient. There were carrot pancakes, carrot soup, carrot scrambled eggs, and so on. When Leng Ruoxue and the rest saw so many carrot dishes, they immediately fell silent. It looked like they would have to eat carrots too. Woo woo, everyone glanced at Uncle Long with resentment. Then, they picked up their chopsticks unwillingly and ate in small bites. Ao Jia, who was also having a hard time eating, looked at the others' forced smiles. Suddenly, it was as if he had found his fellow brothers in distress. He became energetic. Humph. Wasn't it just a carrot? He ate. Anyway, there was someone to eat with him, so what was he afraid of? As Ao Jia thought about it, he looked at the carrots more affectionately. He also felt that the carrots did not taste that bad. However, everyone ate surprisingly little for this meal. In the next few days, their main course became carrots. At the end of the meal, everyone felt nauseated at the sight of the carrots. However, due to Uncle Long's power, they did not dare to voice their grievances. Many of them even used the excuse that they were not hungry and hid in their rooms when it was mealtime. They did not dare to take a step out. Otherwise, Uncle Long would definitely lecture them not to waste food and then force them to eat it. It was terrifying just thinking about it, so everyone became otakus for a while. However, there was one person who could not withstand Uncle Long's powerful attacks, and that was Ao Jia. Hence, every time it was mealtime, the same scene would play out outside Ao Jia's room. It's time to eat. Standing outside Ao Jia's door, Uncle Long said expressionlessly. I'm not hungry. Ao Jia replied from behind the door. He had to give a response when Uncle Long came to look for him. Otherwise, that shameless guy would break in directly. So, he couldn't play dumb even if he wanted to. He felt so wronged. We're not eating because we're hungry, we're just trying to satisfy our appetite. So, don't be shy and come with me. Let's go eat. Uncle Long was obviously non-negotiable. Every time Uncle Long said that, Ao Jia had to walk out of the room unwillingly because the next step would mean that Uncle Long was going to use violence. Seeing that each meal was only for 2 people, Ao Jia wanted to cry but had no tears. This meant that Uncle Long had specially prepared it for them. And most of the food for 2 would go into his stomach. This continued every day, but Ao Jia had no intention of leaving. However, even if Uncle Long was purposely picking on Ao Jia, he would not torture her stomach. Hence, every time he had a symbolic meal with Ao Jia, he would directly enter the universal bracelet to nourish himself. Seeing this, Leng Ruoxue could only feel helpless. In the bracelet. As usual, Uncle Long was eating happily. Leng Ruoxue, who was at the side, saw this and couldn't help but ask, Uncle Long, how long are you going to eat your carrot feast? If this continues, Godfather and the others will go crazy. Oh. I won't eat it tomorrow. I'll eat a green pepper feast instead. Uncle Long said with a smirk. Ah. Leng Ruoxue was speechless. Wasn't he still a noob? After not eating meat for so long, she saw that Ao Jia was about to turn into a rabbit. If he changed to eating green pepper, Ao Jia would probably vomit whenever he saw green vegetables. Finish the green peppers and then the eggplants. Uncle Long ignored Leng Ruoxue's reaction and continued. The moment Uncle Long said this, Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but feel disgusted in her heart. You're too cruel, you're driving Ao Jia crazy. In reality, Ao Jia was on the verge of breaking down. Furthermore, Leng Ruoxue knew that every time Ao Jia finished his meal, he would eat other things like Uncle Long. However, Uncle Long would eat in his bracelet while Ao Jia would be feasting in the land of demons. In just a few days, the number of low-level small beasts in the land of demons had decreased drastically. If this continued, the native beasts in the land of demons would have a problem because those were originally their food. Little girl, are you going to plead for that guy? Seeing Leng Ruoxue's conflicted expression, Uncle Long asked calmly. It can be considered so. Leng Ruoxue nodded. The head butler of the family was Uncle Long, so she naturally had to give him some face. Hee hee. Don't worry, that guy can take it. He has thick skin and a big temper, so there's no harm in eating more vegetables. Uncle Long said with a smile. Oh. Uncle Long, are you planning to force him to back off? Len Ruoshua asked curiously. Uncle Long had been chasing them away for a long time. However, Aojie had been thick-skinned enough to stay here. I can't drive that guy away. Unless he wants to leave. Uncle Long said helplessly. The reason why he did all these was to tease Aojie. That guy was too annoying sometimes. Then Uncle Long is doing all this for free? Len Ruoshua was speechless. I don't think so. At least I'm happy. Uncle Long said disapprovingly. Ah. All right. I'm sure Uncle Long must be very bored. Len Ruoshua understood. Hee hee. It was quite boring recently. I don't even like to count money anymore, mainly because I can't count it all. Uncle Long said in an annoying tone. Uncle Long, we have to keep a low profile. Len Ruoshua realized that she had been feeling more helpless lately, and it was all because of Uncle Long. Yes, we have to keep a low profile so that others won't be jealous of us, Uncle Long nodded seriously. At this moment, Qing Ju's voice rang in their ears. Sister, someone is looking for you outside. Qing Ju said. Who is it? Len Ruoshua was puzzled. Who would come? You'll know when you see it. Qing Ju kept them in suspense and then disappeared. Little girl, I'll go with you to take a look. Uncle Long asked curiously. Len Ruoshua nodded. Then, she brought Uncle Long and the evildoer out of the bracelet. When they arrived at the living room, Len Ruoshua saw the person sitting on a chair with his back facing them. That person seemed a little familiar. Chen Wu, on the other hand, stood beside that person with a straight face, not saying a word. When he saw Len Ruoshua, Chen Wu immediately looked at the person sitting down with vigilance and said, Miss, this guy said he's here to find you. He also said he'll stay here and cook for you. Chen Wu's tone wasn't very good, because he had a deep hatred for this person. At this moment, the person who had his back to them turned around. When he saw Len Ruoshua, he cried out in surprise, Shuai, I've finally met you again. Woo! It really wasn't easy. Seeing this person, Len Ruoxua's head started to hurt, and the evildoer's face immediately darkened. Yo! Isn't that the little guy from the Ji family? The person who had come was Ji Yun. Although Uncle Long had not had much contact with him, he still had some impression of him. Yup. I'm Ji Yun. Hello, senior. When Ji Yun saw Uncle Long, he greeted him with great respect. Although he had only met Uncle Long a few times, Uncle Long's strength gave him an unfathomable feeling. Therefore, in order to stay here smoothly, he had to please Uncle Long. Hello. May I know why you've come to find my family's girl? Uncle Long sized up Ji Yun and asked indifferently. Clearly, he had completely ignored Chen Wu's words. I'm here to seek shelter with Shuai. I want to stay here and wash my hands and make soup for her every day. Ji Yun went straight to the point. As he spoke, his cheeks were flushed red. He was very embarrassed to say such words. Ah! Upon hearing Ji Yun's words, Uncle Long's eyes widened in disbelief. He stared at Ji Yun as if he was looking at a rare animal. Then, he carefully sized him up. He thought to himself, this guy is quite bold. To dare to say such words, was this little thing not afraid that someone would kill her to silence her? One must know that he could clearly feel the low air pressure from a certain someone. Even he, a reverent god, could not bear the cold temperature. After glancing at Uncle Long's reaction, Ji Yun looked at Len Ruoshua with a wronged expression. Tears could be seen in his eyes as he said with a choked voice, Shuai, I have no home to return to. Will you take me in? Make yourself clear. Len Ruoshua could also feel the chill from the demon as she asked with a headache. I was driven out of the Ji family by my ancestor, so I don't have a home anymore. If you don't take me in, I can only wander the streets. Ji Yun's face was teary as he spoke in an extremely aggrieved manner. Why? Len Ruoxue asked as she rubbed her forehead. What do you mean why? Ji Yun didn't understand. Why were you chased out of your house by your ancestor? Len Ruoxue asked directly. She could tell that she couldn't beat around the bush when speaking to Ji Yun. Otherwise, he would definitely play dumb. He didn't allow me to see you and insisted that I go into seclusion. Naturally, I refused, so he drove me out and said that he didn't want to see me ever again. Sob. I don't have a home anymore. Ji Yun sobbed. However, after hearing his words, Len Ruoxue was very suspicious of the old man's motive. Not only did he not allow him to leave, he even chased him out. Wasn't this self-contradictory? Chapter 2005, Bing Yao is injured. 1. More importantly, no matter what the old man's goal was, Ji Yun must not stay behind. Otherwise, she would never have a day of peace in her home. For the sake of her family's happiness, Len Ruoxue had decided to sacrifice Ji Yun unconditionally. However, it was as if Ji Yun knew what she was thinking. Before Len Ruoxue could even ask him to leave, his own tears started to flow down like the Yellow River. Seeing this, Len Ruoxue was helpless. What was this guy doing? She hadn't even said anything, and he was already crying. It was really a headache. Seeing Ji Yun bawling his eyes out, Len Ruoxue couldn't bring herself to ask him to leave. However, the temperature around her was gradually dropping, causing her to feel fear and trepidation, as if she was walking on thin ice. AI. It's hard to be a human. It was even harder to be a kind woman. Len Ruoxue couldn't help but sigh. Shuer, don't chase me away. Other than your place, I really don't know where else I can go. Ji Yun's eyes silently rolled down as he sobbed. Hearing his words, Len Ruoxue endured it again and again. In fact, she really wished that she could be more ruthless and kill Ji Yun, this little seedling that could bring harm to her family, in the cradle. However, looking at Ji Yun's current pitiful appearance, if she really did that, it would seem a little unkind. In addition, the sky was almost dark. If she chased Ji Yun away, he might get lost in the land of demons. At that time, wouldn't she be in even more trouble? As she thought about it, Len Ruoxue became more and more conflicted. She didn't dare to look at the ball of ice beside her. It was too cold, wasn't it? Shuer, seeing no reaction from Len Ruoxue, Ji Yun was so nervous that his heart was in his throat. Sob. Is Shuer really that heartless? He didn't believe it. He was definitely going to stay here today. After making up his mind, Ji Yun cried even more fiercely. However, it was all silent crying, which made him look even more pitiful. Shuer, leave him to me. Just then, a heavenly voice rang out from outside the hall. At least, it sounded like that to Len Ruoxue's ears. Following the voice, Feng Moran walked in from outside with a smile on his face. The moment Len Ruoxue saw him, she was overjoyed. It was as if she had found a life-saving straw. The joy on her beautiful face could not be concealed. Big brother Feng, I'll leave that Ji Yun to you, said Len Ruoxue hurriedly. With that, she pulled the large ice block beside her and disappeared. When Uncle Long saw that Len Ruoxue was running faster than a rabbit, he sighed helplessly. Isn't he just a little fellow? Did Shuer have to act like she had encountered a ferocious beast? With this thought in mind, he patted Ji Yun's shoulder in a consoling manner. Then, he left without another word. In the blink of an eye, only Feng Moran, Ji Yun, and Cheng Wu were left in the hall. However, Cheng Wu immediately left the living room, saying that he had something to attend to. At this moment, only Feng Moran and Ji Yun were left in the living room, staring at each other. Hello, young Lord Ji, Feng Moran. After sizing up Ji Yun for a while, Feng Moran introduced himself. Hello, he said. Ji Yun's eyes were filled with tears, and they were red. Young Lord Ji, if you're willing to listen to me, I have a way to make you stay here. Otherwise, I can't do anything. After the two introduced themselves, Feng Moran continued, "Then I'll listen to you." Ji Yun hesitated for a while before saying. In fact, he had agreed because he saw that the handsome man in front of him didn't look like Gui Shuli. "Very good, follow me." Feng Moran nodded in satisfaction and turned to Ji Yun. After he finished speaking, he turned and left. Seeing this, Ji Yun could only follow behind. Feng Moran led Ji Yun through many twists and turns, and finally, they arrived at a small courtyard. That small courtyard was located at the southern corner of the Leng family's main residence. Although it didn't look very conspicuous from the outside, it was fully equipped with all the essentials. Most importantly, there was a restriction in the courtyard. That was why he had brought Ji Yun here. If Ji Yun lived here, he wouldn't be able to enter and leave freely without the permission of the master. This was because this was the place that Leng Ruoxue had planned to punish his subordinate with the lower wall. Hence, he felt that this was the most suitable place for Ji Yun to live. From this, it could be seen that he had also been dyed black. Ji Yun didn't know the significance of this courtyard, but he was extremely grateful that Feng Moran was willing to take him in, allowing him to have the opportunity to stay by Shuai'er's side. So, when Feng Moran told him that he would live here in the future, he agreed without a second thought. In fact, he had no choice but to agree. He was the one who wanted to stay here, so of course, they wouldn't treat him as a guest. So, although this courtyard was small and unremarkable, and couldn't be compared to the spacious and luxurious courtyard he had in the Ji family, there was Shuai'er here and not there. Therefore, he was quite satisfied with this place. Unfortunately, his satisfaction did not last long before it turned into complete depression. What he didn't expect was that the gentle and handsome man would set him up. However, it was too late when he found out. Now, he had finally settled down in the Leng family as he had wished. After finishing with Ji Yun, Feng Moran left. For the next few days, Leng Ruoxue did not see Ji Yun appear in front of her. She thought that Ji Yun had already left. However, after hearing from Cheng Wu, she found out that Ji Yun had been lured by Big Brother Feng into a small courtyard with a restriction. Instantly, she looked at Feng Moran with a strange expression, causing Feng Moran to feel embarrassed. However, the evildoer was very satisfied with Feng Moran's performance. As long as Ji Yun didn't appear in front of him, he didn't care where he lived. On a certain day, everyone gathered in the garden. When they inadvertently talked about Ji Yun, everyone expressed their deep sympathy for him. "Shuai'er, how long do you plan to keep that little fellow from the Ji family?" the master of the Ning family asked curiously. "I didn't lock him up." When Leng Ruoxue heard her godfather's words, black lines appeared on her forehead. She thought to herself, could it be that everyone thinks that I'm the one who incited Big Brother Feng to lock her up? Then wouldn't she be more wrong than Dou-yi? After locking him up for so long, I think it's time to get him out and let him out for some fresh air. Little brat Yi, you won't be so stingy, right? That little fellow is no threat to you. Uncle Long smiled and pleaded. He really felt that the house was not lively enough recently and it was quite boring. Therefore, he wanted to get Ji Yun out to add some liveliness to the house. Who asked Ao Jia to always leave early and return late? This caused him to have no opponents even if he wanted to find someone to quarrel with. I know. Since Uncle Long has pleaded for him, let him leave the small courtyard. The demon relaxed. In truth, he was only annoyed by Ji Yun's constant fawning over Shuai'er. Other than that, he truly didn't place Ji Yun in his eyes. However, the reason why he gave face to Uncle Long was not because he did not have his own considerations. During the time that he had locked up Ji Yun, he had been secretly observing the situation in the small courtyard with his divine sense. He discovered that although Ji Yun was somewhat depressed, his feelings for Shuai'er seemed to have become even stronger. In this case, there was no point in imprisoning Ji Yun. He could not let that annoying fellow be completely convinced either. Since that was the case, he might as well do Uncle Long a favor and wait for that person to come out before he dealt him a good blow. He had to let that person see the gap between him and himself, so that he would know the difficulty and retreat. Chapter 2006, Bing Yao is injured, too. This thought had been in his mind for some time, but no one had interceded on Ji Yun's behalf, so he couldn't take the initiative to speak up. Today, he just happened to push the boat along with the current. After obtaining the demon's approval, Cheng Wu was ordered to release Ji Yun. Then, he arranged for Ji Yun to stay in the guest room. However, when Leng Ruoxue and the rest saw Ji Yun, they were rather shocked. Oh my God! Was this haggard, sorrowful man in front of her the silly, heartless Ji Yun? It couldn't have been switched, right? Everyone was extremely suspicious. However, when Ji Yun saw Leng Ruoxue, he said with tears in his eyes, "Shuer, you're so cruel. You actually turned a blind eye to me and even allowed others to lock me up." Ugh! After hearing Ji Yun's words, Leng Ruoxue was speechless. Was Ji Yun complaining to her? However, she would definitely stand on Big Brother Feng's side. However, seeing Ji Yun's current state, she didn't want to deal him a heavy blow. Thus, she could only remain silent. Seeing Leng Ruoxue's lack of reaction, Ji Yun felt even more aggrieved. Alright, kid of the Ji family, you're an uninvited guest. Other than the fact that you can't move freely, no one has treated you badly. So, stop pretending to be pitiful. No one here will pity you. The master of the Ning family explained to his precious goddaughter. In fact, he also felt that this kid of the Ji family was too pretentious. It was good to lock him up so that he wouldn't get into trouble. However, it was no big deal to let him out. With them around, what big waves could this kid cause? Master Ning's words had hurt Ji Yun's glass heart, but he knew that he was an outsider, so it was only right that he didn't stand on his side. After consoling himself like this, his mood improved a lot. Then, Ji Yun immediately became lively again. He even spoke to Uncle Long and the others with great enthusiasm. "Seniors, I'll go make some delicious food for you to taste my cooking." After he finished speaking, he didn't give anyone a chance to object and ran off without a trace. Does this guy know the kitchen? Uncle Long couldn't help but ask as he watched Ji Yun's hurried back. He asked me on the way here. Cheng Wu cleared their doubts. This kid is probably going to roast meat again. No, I have to go back to my room and hide. Lu Feng hurriedly stood up when he heard this. Although they had been eating vegetables at home recently, that didn't mean that he wanted to eat roasted meat, especially if it was cooked by Ji Yun. He had long since been injured from eating. "I'll go back to my room too." Seeing this, Lu Yue stood up and said, "What are you guys doing? Isn't it just barbecuing meat? Is there a need to scare you like this?" Uncle Long said with a faint smile. He had long heard of Ji Yun's famous roast meat, but he had never tasted it personally. "Uncle Long, roasted meat is like vegetables to us now, so it's really hard for us to swallow. I won't talk to you anymore, I have to go back to my room and hide." After Lu Feng finished speaking, he stood up and wanted to leave. However, he was stopped by Uncle Long. Uncle Long said disapprovingly, "Look at you, you haven't eaten meat for days. While old man Ao isn't here, we can secretly eat. So, you can't leave." Uncle Long was very serious. "Uncle Long," Lu Feng was about to defend himself, but before he could finish, Ao Jie's voice rang out in the courtyard. "Hurry up and help." When the crowd heard this, they hurriedly left the garden and walked towards the main entrance. They saw Ao Jie standing at the entrance of the courtyard, covered in blood. However, he was not alone. He was carrying someone on his shoulder, and that person's body had long been stained red with blood, and it was still dripping blood. "I say, old man Ao, what's wrong with you? Did he go to rob someone?" Seeing this, Uncle Long couldn't help but guess. The concern in his eyes disappeared in a flash. "It's a long story, hurry up and help me," Ao Jie urged. When everyone saw this, they quickly went forward to help the person that Ao Jie was carrying down. "Old man Ao, are you injured?" Uncle Long looked at the bloodied man and then at Ao Jie. I'm fine. This blood is his. Aojia said hurriedly. He's seriously injured. Don't you have healing pills on you? Why didn't you give him one? Uncle Long really didn't understand. He had already saved her, but he didn't give her any healing pills. What was the difference between this and not saving her? He did, but the healing pills he had couldn't stop him. Hurry up and think of a way. I can't let him die. Aojia said worriedly. Upon hearing this, Len Ruoshua, Shen Noa, and Lu Yue immediately squatted down and curiously examined the condition of the injured person. However, they were shocked to discover that the wounds on the injured person's body were very strange. They were actually web-like and the wounds were as thick as chopsticks. They were very dense and round, and fresh blood was continuously seeping out from them. At the rate of his blood loss, he would probably die soon. How is it? Do you have any way to stop the bleeding? Aojia asked worriedly. If the bleeding could not be stopped, his life force would be depleted no matter how strong he was. I'll try. Len Ruoshua took out a supreme-grade healing pill and stuffed it into the bloody man's mouth. After observing for a while, she was disappointed because the blood was still flowing and had even stained the courtyard. Seeing this, Len Ruoshua was depressed. If even the best-grade healing pills were not effective on this person, she really didn't know what else could save him. For a moment, she was at a loss on what to do with this person's injuries. Since Len Ruoxu's supreme-grade healing medicinal pill did not work, Shen Noa and Lu Yue also expressed that they were helpless. Seeing that they were helpless, Aojia was anxious. What should we do? He can't die. Aojia was like an ant on a hot pan as he walked around in the courtyard and muttered to himself. At this time, the curious first elder gently peeled away the hair covering the bloody man's face and wiped the blood off his face. He suddenly turned pale with fright. Little Shuai, the great elder's eyes were wide open and he could not speak. Although this person had many injuries on his body and face, he could still recognize this person's identity at a glance. Senior brother. The first elder's reaction caused Len Ruoshua, who was deep in thought, to lower her head subconsciously. When she saw the face of the bloody man, her expression changed drastically. This bloody man was none other than her eldest senior brother, Bing Yao, whom she had not heard from for a long time. However, Len Ruoshua would never have dreamed that she would meet her senior brother under such circumstances. How did senior brother end up like this? Len Ruoxu's heart clenched. Although she had not been with her senior brother for a long time, she had already regarded him as her family. Now that she saw her senior brother lying unconscious in a pool of blood, her heart ached. Little girl, he's your senior brother. Hearing Len Ruoshua call him senior brother, Aojia's eyes widened in disbelief. Chapter 2007, Bing Yao is injured, 3, what's going on? Len Ruoshua nodded and asked Aojia. I found him at the foot of the mountain in the land of demons. He was unconscious at the time, so I had to carry him up the mountain. I didn't expect him to be your senior brother. The world is really small. Aojia said with a strange expression. After he finished speaking, he looked at Uncle Long without saying anything. Shuai, let's carry him into the guest room first and think of a way. Uncle Long suggested. All right. Len Ruoshua nodded. In reality, after she discovered that this person was her senior brother, she, who was always calm, was a little out of her wits. Fortunately, Uncle Long had reminded her. After sending Bing Yao to the guest room, Len Ruoshua suddenly thought of contacting Qing Ju. After telling him about senior brother's situation, Qing Ju fell silent. After a long time. Sister, Bing Yao has been poisoned by a special poison. If we want to cure him, we have to find the culprit who poisoned him. Otherwise, Qing Ju did not finish his sentence, but Len Ruoshua understood what he was trying to say. Poisoned? What kind of poison is so strange that it can cause such an injury? Len Ruoshua really didn't understand. However, now wasn't the time to ask for details. Qing Ju, no matter what poison senior brother is suffering from, I'll try my best to cure him. However, the most important thing now is to stop the bleeding. Do you have any good ideas? Len Ruoxue continued. Use freeze. Qing Ju said after thinking. Frozen? Len Ruoxue was pleasantly surprised. This was a good idea. Why didn't she think of it before? It seemed that concern really made him confused. At the thought of this, Len Ruoxue quickly cut off the connection with Qing Ju and cast the freezing spell on Bing Yao. After a while, Bing Yao turned into a transparent ice sculpture. Looking at Bing Yao, who was frozen on the bed, Len Ruoxue felt that it was not suitable for him to stay in the guest room. The most suitable place for him should be a place with ice. That way, it would be better to keep his body temperature. Shuai, send him to the endless ocean, my home. I have a 10,000-year-old ice bed at home, it's perfect for him to be placed there. Seeing through Len Ruoxue's thoughts, Uncle Long hurriedly explained. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go. Aojie said anxiously. The anxiety on his face was no less than Len Ruoxue's. When he saw that Bing Yao was frozen, he understood what Len Ruoxue meant. This was indeed the best solution so far. Otherwise, Bing Yao would die from blood loss sooner or later. After making up their mind, Len Ruoxue, the demon, Uncle Long, and Aojie sent Bing Yao to the endless ocean, while Master Ning and the others stayed in the land of evil demons to look after the house. When they arrived at the endless ocean, Uncle Long immediately set up a transparent protective barrier for Len Ruoxue and the other two. Then, he brought them to the bottom of the ocean and to his home. When they arrived at the entrance of the house, Uncle Long made a few hand seals before his lair was revealed to Len Ruoxue and the other two. Uncle Long's house was very simple. It was a room that looked like a secret room. There were no decorations in it, only a 10,000-year ice bed that emitted a biting cold air. When Len Ruoxue saw the bed, she immediately moved her senior brother out from the room she was in and placed him on the bed. Looking at the handsome man who had turned into an ice sculpture, Len Ruoxue felt extremely upset. In her memory, Bing Yao had always been like a god, but now, that godlike man was lying on the bed lifelessly. She couldn't even ask what happened to her senior brother, which made her feel helpless. Little Shuai, she's settled down, so you can rest assured. It's absolutely safe here, and I'll also let the beasts of the endless sea guard him well. Let's leave. Uncle Long suggested, not wanting Len Ruoxue to continue being sad. Thank you, Uncle Long. Len Ruoxue said gratefully. Silly girl, why are you being so polite with Uncle Long? Uncle Long pretended to be unhappy. That's right, you don't have to be polite with this old thing. Aojie joked. He also felt that the atmosphere was a little off, so he could only echo. Len Ruoxue forced a smile. Then, the four of them left the endless ocean and returned to their home on the mountain in the land of evil demons. As soon as they returned to their room, Len Ruoxue could not wait any longer and went into the bracelet to ask Qing Ju about her senior brother's situation. When Qing Ju saw how anxious Len Ruoxue was, he had no choice but to tell her everything. Sister, you'd better be prepared. Before they could officially start, Qing Ju warned. Say it. How can I cure Shixiang's poison? When Len Ruoxue saw Qing Ju's serious expression, she knew that the poison in her senior brother's body would not be easy to cure. However, as long as there was a chance of survival, she would not give up. Sister, the poison in Bing Yao's body is a kind of flower poison. It is similar to the flower poison that Suizhu was once poisoned with, but it is more than 1,000 times stronger. So, if we want to cure Bing Yao, we have to find the flower that poisoned him. But the flower is very powerful. Qing Ju's voice became softer and softer as he spoke. What flower is it? Len Ruoxue asked coldly. Her face was filled with coldness. It was actually flower poison again. There were so many poisonous flowers in the divine realm that she even had the thought of destroying them. It's the blood cherry blossom. Qing Ju said helplessly. Although he did not want to tell his sister, he knew that if he did not let her know, she would be in greater danger. After Bing Yao was frozen, he did not suggest his sister to put Bing Yao into the bracelet for safety reasons. Once the poison entered the soul, it would be able to control the person who was poisoned. It might even let the person know where he was. He could not take the risk. It's the blood cherry blossom again. When Leng Ruoxue heard the words blood cherry blossom, the fury in her heart rose to the highest point. She had to admit that she was not compatible with the birth dates of those flowers and plants. Otherwise, why would she hear the words flower poison and blood cherry blossom everywhere she went? Sister, the blood cherry blossoms we saw in the secret realm were only clones. If we want to cure Bingio's poison, we have to use our original bodies. Qing Ju continued. Oh. What part of the blood cherry blossom was needed? Where can I find its main body? Leng Ruoxue asked. I only need one blood cherry blossom petal. Qing Ju replied. As for Leng Ruoxue's other question, it was ignored by him. However, even if he didn't answer, Leng Ruoxue would still want to know. You still haven't told me where I can find the true body of the blood cherry blossom. Leng Ruoxue reminded. She could tell that Qing Ju was playing dumb and did not want to tell her. Big sister, you're still too weak right now. You won't be able to obtain the petals of the blood cherry blossoms. Qing Ju did not want to dampen his sister's enthusiasm, but he did not want to lie to her either. How would I know if I don't try? You just have to tell me where I can find that flower. Leng Ruoxue asked anxiously. God Lord's mansion. Qing Ju stole a glance at the demon's expression. He only dared to tell Leng Ruoxue when he saw that he did not object. The Divine Master's estate. Leng Ruoxue said indifferently. That lousy flower was indeed related to the Divine Master. She had guessed it before, but Qing Ju had confirmed it for her. Shui, the blood cherry blossom is actually the main body of the fog. At this moment, the demon revealed a big secret. When Leng Ruoxue heard this, her eyes widened in shock as she looked at the evildoer in disbelief. In the past, she had thought that the blood cherry blossom was related to the God Lord's estate. However, she had only thought that the evil flower was raised by the God Lord's estate. She had never thought that the flower was actually Fog Phoenix herself. That's right, she remembered that the demon had once mentioned that the fog ice was a seed. However, she had not linked the blood cherry blossom to the fog ice itself. Now it seemed that this was her mistake. Shui, Wu Jing's strength may not be comparable to Yu's, but most of Ye's abilities have been taught to her. Therefore, her strength is also unfathomable. In fact, I don't even know what level her strength has reached. Therefore, I don't want you to fight her now, the demon held Shui and said softly. However, he did not finish his words and did not know how to continue. I can't not save my senior brother, no matter how powerful that rime ice is. Leng Ruoxue understood the demon's meaning. She did not want to fight against a strong enemy now, but she was afraid that her senior brother could not wait. I'll help you get her flower petals. The demon understood Shui-er's feelings and naturally would not let Shui-er take the risk. Therefore, he was the most suitable person to go. You? Demon, I know you're worried about me, but how can I not be worried about you? You are from the 9 Nether prison. If you fight with Wu Xian in the divine world, you will have to use your original power. What if the laws of heaven and earth punish you? Leng Ruoxue asked worriedly. She remembered the demon saying that the heaven-earth law had many restrictions on him. Hence, he could not move freely. More importantly, the demon was not willing to let her take risks, and she did not want him to either. However, with the demon's current strength, it would be difficult for him to deal with fog ice. Furthermore, going to her lair was no different from courting death. So, she couldn't agree. Shui, don't worry. As long as I don't destroy the divine realm's order and defense, the laws of heaven and earth won't do anything to me. After all, the divine realm is different from those lower-level planes. It's not that fragile. The demon smiled and comforted her. Shuai's worry for him made him very happy. Chapter 2008, Before Departure, 1, Really? After hearing the demon's words, Leng Ruoxue was half convinced and half suspicious. She continued, Then I'll go with you. Shuai, the evildoer looked at Leng Ruoxue with slight disapproval. It's settled then. Leng Ruoxue gave the final word. All right then. However, you have to listen to everything I say. The demon said after thinking for a while. All right. Leng Ruoxue nodded her head delightedly. It was fine as long as she was allowed to go. Following that, Leng Ruoxue's beautiful eyes turned to Qingju and asked, Qingju, is there a time limit to the poison in senior brother's body? Under normal temperature, the blood cherry blossom poison will definitely control the person within half a year. However, Bing Yao has already been frozen, so the poison in his body will not spread for the time being. However, the sooner we get the antidote, the better. Qingju frowned and explained. Half a year. If it's at room temperature and the wound can't stop bleeding, can it last for half a year? Leng Ruoxue asked in confusion. To her, no matter if it was a human or a god, losing blood was a huge problem. It's possible. The life force of a god is very strong. Half a year is not a problem. Once the poison of the blood cherry blossom takes control of the poisoned person, the blood will stop flowing out. However, at that time, there will be no way to cure the poisoned person. Qingju continued. Oh. Leng Ruoxue understood. However, no matter how long her senior brother could last, she knew that she had to get her hands on the blood cherry blossom petals as soon as possible. Her senior brother was like a banished immortal. If he were to continue lying on the bed lifelessly, her heart would ache. Sister, I won't stop you if you want to go to the Divine Master's estate. However, you'd better let Huanqin know that he's more familiar with the Divine Master's estate than I am. Things will be much easier with him leading the way. Qingju reminded. In addition, that guy's strength was almost undamaged, so he could at least be a hired thug. Therefore, Huan Chen was naturally used as a labor force. Leng Ruoxue nodded and left the bracelet with the evildoer. At the same time, in another room, Uncle Long and Ao Jia were sitting opposite each other, but neither of them spoke first. After a long while, Ao Jia finally spoke first. I say, old whale, what are you thinking? Ao Jia looked at the calm Uncle Long and could not help asking. What do you mean by what I think? Uncle Long asked indifferently. Of course it's that little girl. Her identity. Ao Jia was only halfway through his sentence when he looked at Uncle Long with anticipation. Didn't she call him senior brother Bing Yao? Uncle Long said, unmoving. I know. I mean, isn't she also that person's disciple? Ao Jia said with uncertainty. He had not spent as much time with Leng Ruoxue as Uncle Long, and Leng Ruoxue rarely appeared in front of him. Hence, he did not know Leng Ruoxue very well. Aren't you talking nonsense? Uncle Dragon glanced at Ao Jia and said with slight disdain. You already knew. Ao Jia's eyes widened as he asked. He could not help but think, no wonder this guy is with that little girl. So he knew about that little girl's identity. This time, he knew the truth. I really don't know. Uncle Long shrugged his shoulders and said innocently. You don't know? Then why are you still so calm? Ao Jia's eyes were still wide open. He did not believe Uncle Long's words. What else could I have done? Uncle Long asked. Ah. Ao Jia was at a loss for words. What else could he do? It seemed that he was really too agitated. However, he was also shocked by this fact. He didn't expect that person to actually take in a disciple. What should we do next? Then, Ao Jia asked again. He was out of ideas as this matter had a huge impact on him. Well, wait and see. Uncle Long replied with 4 words and put on a calm expression. What? What do you mean? Ao Jia didn't understand why they had been enduring for so many years. Now that he had finally found Bing Yao and knew that he had an apprentice, how could he hold back? It's the literal meaning. Uncle Long said calmly. Don't you want to avenge that person? Ao Jia quickly asked after hearing Uncle Long's words. Did I ever say that? Uncle Dragon glanced at Ao Jia and smiled. Didn't you say to wait and see? Doesn't that mean we won't fight? Ao Jia said. At least, that was how he understood it. As long as he said the words, wait and see, he did not know how long it would drag on. It's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. We've waited for so many years, what's the point of waiting for this little bit more? Besides, Bing Yao is injured, and Shuai is not strong enough. This is not the best time for revenge. Uncle Long said calmly. Now he knew why Huanshan had acknowledged Shuai as its master. It seemed that the legendary artifact spirit had long known of Shuai's identity. Otherwise, he would not have secretly followed her out of the Divine Master's estate. Now that he was Master Ye's disciple, everything made more sense. AI. That's true. Ao Jia sighed heavily and continued, Old Whale, what do we do about Bing Yao's injuries? If he continues to be like this, it will be a great loss for us. You don't need to say that. However, we're not alchemists, so even if we want to save him, we can't do anything. However, I know that Shuai will definitely think of a way, so we just have to listen to her. Uncle Long said. He was very confident in this and believed that Shuai would have a way. Are you that confident in that little girl? Uncle Dragon's words surprised Ao Jie. He didn't expect the old whale to have such a high evaluation of the little girl. It was really out of his expectations. Of course. So, we just have to wait. Uncle Long said with certainty. His deep eyes seemed to be looking into the distance, making it impossible to tell what he was thinking. Then let's wait. I hope your guess is correct. Compared to this old whale, Ao Jie's confidence in Leng Ruoxue was obviously lacking. However, this was also human nature. After all, he had only spent a short time with Leng Ruoxue. Naturally, he could not understand her too well. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Then, Leng Ruoxue's voice was heard. Uncle Long, are you there? It's me. Leng Ruoxue said from outside the door. Shuai, come in. Uncle Long said loudly. When Ao Jia heard Leng Ruoxue's voice, he could not help but sigh. Speak of the devil. Following that, Leng Ruoxue and the demon pushed the door open and entered. After finding a place to sit down, Leng Ruoxue went straight to the point and said to Uncle Long, Uncle Long, the evildoer and I will be leaving for a few days. Well, leave the family to you. Leave? Where to? Uncle Long asked with a faint smile. I'm going to Imperial City. Leng Ruoxue explained with a smile. She didn't want Uncle Long to worry, so she naturally didn't plan on telling him that she was going to steal the flower petals from the Divine Master's residence.